into a really hot recording session, and I don't mean in the sexy way. How you doing, Chase? Oh, we have the fan on in here, but we have it low, and I still don't feel it very much.
July, why you gotta be so hot?
Summer over here fucking sucks. It's definitely that time of the year. I don't care. I'm going to open up with what I tried to do last recording. Did you know that Ed Scudder was part of the Mario movie?
I do now, as of like a few minutes ago.
We had a previous recording attempt at this, and it sucked, so we started over. But Ed Scudder, who was the co-creator and voice of Red from Dig Figures and other characters, is now head of story on the Mario movie, which I cannot believe.
Crazy.
I thought that was funny, considering that the Mario movie was our first. Actually, it does kind of correlate to this episode, because the Mario movie was not a video game. It was a video game topic, adaptation, whatever, that we talked about for the first episode of the podcast.
See.
This is episode 11, which now we're opening up the podcast to more than just games.
Correct.
Officially.
Yes, the very first topic that's not games. I mean,
there are games.
Yeah. But we're not really talking about the games. We might briefly bring up the games, but
we played them on the channel.
Yes, but the primary topic is this show.
Yes. There is one that we bought that we haven't played yet. The Burning Earth.
Yes.
We need to play that one on the show. We played the movie game. I love watching your face contort every time I bring it up, because you just go, that piece of shit.
I remember he came up to me, he's like, Chase, look what I got. And I secretly just wanted to murder him.
It was funny because what happened was I found... Okay, so there was... We went... When did all of that transpire? We went to our little retro game place. We always mention it. We were buying... It was me and Vic. We were buying some just games, and there's a sale going on or something or other, and it was like, buy one, get some off, whatever. Or it was like your lowest, whichever cost
it's like
the less.
Buy three and the cheapest one's free, or something like that.
Yes, it was something like that. And I happened to have come across, for the Wii, the Avatar movie game, and I was like, hey, Chase, check it out. Did
the guy at the store...
He did not question that at all.
Okay. Look at you like...
At least I don't think he did. I'm trying to remember. He was probably like, and I'm like, yeah. I know it's bad. I've watched it already. That leads us into the actual topic of the podcast, which, that was my introduction to Avatar.
God damn it.
I watched the movie first. However...
Yeah, so... Okay, actually, continue what you were going to say.
All I was going to say was, I already knew the movie was bad. I already knew the show was loved by everyone. My mentality was just, I love watching stupid movies, especially if they're adaptations of other things. I just want to watch it to see how bad it is. And we rented it. We didn't buy it. To this day, I don't think we own the movie. We rented it years ago. And
I remember he told me that, and I kept trying to press him to watch Avatar. He's like, I've always seen snippets. And I eventually just caved. I was like, you bitch, it's your birthday or something, or Christmas. I don't remember what the event was, but I bought...
A holiday for sure. Yeah. Something or other.
I was like, here's the fucking disc set.
The complete series of Avatar: The Last Airbender on DVD. Yeah, because you and Jerry were both like, have you watched Avatar at all? I'm like, nah, just in my clips. And you guys would just be like, oh. And I was like, what? I just didn't grow up with it. Why is it that bad? Well, I mean, in hindsight, yeah. So, I think before you bought it for me, I did start to watch it on my own. We were just talking about this before we started recording. I think I found like a random site that just had a bunch of like cartoon episodes or whatever on it, like shows and whatnot, and I watched some of them there. And yeah, no, I was like, oh, this is a fucking good show. And then you bought the series. And I've binged that exact series a good, I don't know, 4 or 5 times over, I think. So, yeah, it's a good show.
I remember. See, when I got introduced to it, I was watching the episodes through Nickelodeon as it was airing. But, of course, it's a lot different than all the Nickelodeon shows because all the other ones are like SpongeBob, for example, is one of the big ones, right? Very episodic.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like an overarching story, right? Avatar is very different in that respect than all of Nickelodeon's other cartoons. Even now, it's still pretty much true.
Yeah.
Right? And so I didn't get to appreciate it quite as much because it's meant to be seen as more of a through and through show, right? The first season can be a little bit more episodic, but definitely by book 2, it's pretty much like,
this is the show, here's the story, tune in next time to see what happens next.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and so I didn't get to appreciate it as much, and it wasn't until sometime later, probably in high school, I think, or early college, one of the others, where I got around to seeing it again, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, and since then, I've just been a big fan. I have the Blu-ray set of that in Korra. I have all the comics. I have the novels that have been coming out. All the little short stories, everything. I'm a fan, man, through and through.
Yeah. You and Jerry were on my case about it. You finally said fuck it, got me the whole set for Avatar. Later then with Korra too, because that was just the obvious next step. I think the part I wasn't really ready for was how deep like the lore and the characters were going to go.
Yeah, exactly. It catches you off guard because I think a lot of people get turned off by the show before they give it a chance because they just see like, oh, it's a Nickelodeon show, it must be for kids, right? Mm-hmm. And it definitely does still pull a child audience.
Yeah.
But the writers were smart and wrote it in a way that pretty much anyone who watches it of any age can appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right? It's really well written in that regard. It has something for everyone, like a little bit of childish charm while also still being pretty deep, and having meaningful character relations and plot points and a good developed world and everything. So, no, they did a fantastic job with it.
Because a lot of the material too sometimes that they deal with and the situations are adult too. Yeah.
I mean, even right at the beginning, like in like the first couple episodes, they're already saying like, oh yeah, there was a genocide.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, like right out of the gate, basically.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I really, the more I watched it, the more I was understanding how everything connected in that regard and just what everyone was going through. And I'm like, wow. Because it's true. Like a lot of Nick shows are they hit the entertainment aspect first, and they're like, nothing's gonna connect. You're gonna watch it to have fun,
not in a meaningful way.
Yeah. So a lot of the initial shows you think of, like SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents or something,
Jimmy Neutron,
they're there to make you laugh. And Avatar, of course, does that as well. But those other shows like are in it for the entertainment first and foremost. They want to make you laugh and they want to do silly shit with the characters. And Avatar has that, but it goes deeper. That's the simplest way to say it.
Yes, and that's what drew me in so much. I've always been a big fan of animation anyway. Like, I know a lot of people like they prefer the live action stuff, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy the live action, but for whatever reason, for me, I just have a really strong appreciation for animated and drawn artwork when it comes to shows. And I think they did a wonderful job. A lot of that show, especially after book 1, they kind of got that budget boost. I would say it started to get animated really, really well.
I was gonna say exactly.
Especially for the time frame that it was in.
That was another thing. Yeah, the animation was just so unlike the other shows, and it was that much more detailed, and it helped with the story and the characters because you could see more of those worlds. You can see more of the detail in the environments and the characters, like expressions and stuff, and it gets the emotion across a hell of a lot more. Don't get me started on the emotion of the show, dear God. But it's the colors are so good. Like everything about it visually everything is up there. That is the thing. It's kind of hard to criticize the show in like a way that, like, everyone unanimously goes, yeah, that part of it. Like, the only thing I can really think of was, like, The Great Divide.
In season 1, which I guess we could jump into.
Yeah, that's about, like, one of the only things I think people unanimously are like, that was a weird one, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, there are other things that people complain about, but the majority of people who watch the show generally feel that the overall show is very good.
Yeah.
You know, and the complaints they do are generally not overarching. It's like things like they have something to pinpoint. Like, I don't like this particular thing, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not like the quality dips at any point or anything in terms of, not even visually, but like
if anything, it just gets better over time.
Yeah. So did you want to go into like seasons?
Yeah, we'll just jump into season 1. So of course, season 1 is
the humble beginnings.
Yes, and you can kind of tell it is, like I already kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, it is a little bit more episodic than season 2 and season 3. You can tell they're trying a little bit to try and figure out exactly what foothold they want. And if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, but I think they weren't sure if they were going to get a season 2 and season 3. And so
that sounds about right.
Right. And so they were treating it a little bit more episodic because they didn't know what they were going to be able to plan through. Right. And so they were trying to make sure that things kind of got wrapped up quickly. That way they didn't get to the end of season 1 and go, we have all this unanswered questions and stuff, you know?
Yeah, because like the end of season 1 was a good finale, and it was a good ending to that whole season-long arc of trying to get this to South Pole, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So like they see that North Pole. Okay, yeah. They're already near the.
Yeah.
So,
they started in the southern.
Yeah. So they saw that through, and it's a good conclusion. And it doesn't exactly like end the show right there, but it goes, well, if we can carry through to another season, then we can, and it won't feel like we're just continuing for the sake of elongating the show. So I guess highlights of season 1.
Well, going in order, for me personally, episode 3, which is the one where Zuko goes to get his ship fixed after it got messed up by Aang escaping from the southern when he got captured for the first time in the Southern Water Tribe. And he goes to talk to Admiral Zhao, and during that conversation, we get that little explanation about Zuko saying he's just a banished prince, right? Because he's been called Prince Zuko up to this point, but we don't really know anything about him other than he's an angsty teenager.
Yeah.
Right? And so you get your first little glimpse of what's to come. It's like, you're just a banished prince. No home, no allies. Your own father doesn't even want you. Right?
Yeah.
And then they have that Agni Kai with Zhao. So it just starts that, like, hang on, what's going on with Zuko? There's more to him, and now I really want to start learning more. You know,
yeah.
What did Zhao mean by that? You know, and then you learn about the scar a little bit because Iroh looks at you and goes, "Have you forgotten what happened the last time you dueled a master?"
Yeah.
And it pans over to his eye, and he says, "I will never forget." Right? It just adds that extra little.
It's those little things, yeah.
Yeah, right. And they did good, like kind of laying things out and then slowly building upon them throughout the show. So for me, episode 3 is the first one that kind of is like interesting. Zuko's one of my favorite characters anyway. Zuko and Iroh are my favorite characters in the show. I like both of them. They're like dynamic. It's really good in watching his growth. And so even right away, I was just like, it's funny. I've talked to some people and they say that like they call it Avatar: Last Airbender, but to some people feel like it's more of Zuko's show where it's like
that makes sense.
Yeah, like Aang is doing his Avatar thing, but watching Zuko
because we already know that he's destined for greatness. So to see his journey to get there is obviously one of the highlights of the show. But another highlight is that series-long redemption arc for Zuko, and just seeing how it. Because I remember one thing that tends to bother me sometimes, like, oh my god, because recently I binged with my family all the Star Wars movies, so when we got to the sequels, seeing fucking Kylo's, like, struggle, it reminded me of Zuko to an extent, even down to the part where you think he's going to turn at one certain point, and then he goes, nah. Yeah. And they save it for later, and I'm like, don't do that! Why? And it's not for any kind of, like, drama, or like, oh no, he didn't actually turn. He's still kind of evil, I guess, or whatever. It's just like we know what's going to happen, but like, or maybe that's the suspense. Maybe they're trying to act like, well, will he, won't he? I don't know. Like, just fucking, it feels like a fake out, but it feels like just an elongation of like, okay, you could have probably written this better, probably. And Star Wars as a whole, obviously completely different in terms of the writing and the pacing than it's a whole different story than Avatar. But like, there were some parallels I drew when I was watching the sequels.
Yeah.
So I was like, because when we were watching, well, I was brushing up on a couple of Avatar things. I was watching a few videos, namely some Nostalgia Critic top 11s or whatever, just to really remember some episodes and the bigger highlights of the show and all that. And it's the one where Aang dies, maybe, and Zuko betrays Iroh, and that's where it's like, you had it. You were right there. You were like about to reconsider fucking everything, all your actions, and then you're like, nah, it's whatever. And I was like, no!
Dang it, Zuko! If you watch people's reactions to that scene, everyone gets super pissed.
Yeah, because it's like, dude, you were right there!
Yeah.
But seeing that whole journey for Zuko, there are just so many episodes that dive into him as a character. I mean, Zuko alone, of course, you know.
Yeah.
There's so many fucking moments. But yeah, it does feel like he's the main villain, but it's almost like he's right there as like the main character besides Aang.
Yes. It's like it's both their shows.
Yeah.
After 3, the next episode for me is the Winter Solstice Part 2, which is episode 8. And that's when he meets Roku for the first time in the Fire Nation temple, right? And that's kind of where, because by this point we know about the genocide. We kind of saw what happened to Monkey Otso and the temples, right? And we know that the Fire Lord needs to be stopped. But we that's it. That's kind of just the very overarching thing. That's like all we know, right? And yeah, when we meet when we meet Roku for the first time, he's explaining like the comet and that it's returning by the end of the summer, and then he has to master everything. We get by the end of the summer, which is and it's the winter solstice, so he essentially has like 6 months, right? And so you get that time frame, you get that pressure, and you're like, oh my gosh, this 12-year-old kid has to master 3 entire elements, and Roku's telling them that it takes him years to do that. And so you get that perspective and you get that pressure, right? And it really starts. That's really where the story, I think, it's like, all right, we're on the uptrend here now. And then we were just watching. Yeah, we were just watching the
Nostalgia Critic.
Yes, correct. Thank you. I was blanking. And they were talking about The Storm, episode 12, which is
that's a good one.
Which is probably that and the next one, Blue Spirit 13, are probably my favorite. Some of my favorite episodes from season 1.
Yeah.
Because The Storm does just such a good job of giving that. One of the first parallels where you see between Aang and Zuko, which the show continuously does.
Yeah, like
very
it
well
hints
throughout
at
the
what's
show.
going to happen by the end of the show. Like,
yeah.
What the ultimate solution kind of is, how they're going to, like, just Zuko's redemption. Like, it does a lot to kind of set that up. And again, like you're saying, whether or not they even knew that's where they were going to get to, that was at least the base plan that they started to plant the seeds for by that early on, which was really cool. Because they set up not even just plot lines or other things that would become relevant later, but characters. Fucking Azula.
Who's a fantastic villain, by the way.
My God.
Some people say that Zhao is like a really bad villain. I don't think he's that bad. If you compare him to other cartoons who have some pretty basic villains a lot of the times, I don't think he's actually that bad. It just makes him seem so much worse when the thing he's being compared to is Azula, who's like one of the best villains ever.
Because he was good at being your typical cartoon show bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's all
there's
he
nothing
really
particularly
meant to
wrong
serve.
with him.
No.
He's just one dimensional.
He's the bottom of the villain food chain.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. But which is fine. For the standards of the show, like, he filled his duty, his purpose, exactly. So, like, to have something that was still this pretty big threat that is not yet, because we're still setting up Zuko, we're going to be introduced properly to Azula later, and the overarching villain's going to be the Fire Lord.
And of course,
so like
season 1 was focusing more on like the overall world building. That way you didn't have to focus on as much. You know, that was set up. That way they can really focus on the story and
it's ground level stuff. Yeah,
exactly. All right, and so if you had a super deep, you could argue that having a super deep villain right out of the gate might be hard to fit in when you're trying to do all those other things too.
Yeah, it's a ladder basically in terms of that stuff and. He filled that very well, especially with what he does by the end of the fucking season. Yeah. When he kills one of the spirits, and it's like...
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Fuck. It's still a pretty big deal in the realm of, that part of the story.
And then there's... Yeah, so after the storm, we get that back and forth. We learn about Zuko's scar, that it came from his dad, how Aang... What caused Aang to run away and get stuck in an iceberg. It was just a really good episode. Like we said, it was just a really big foothold for a lot of different plot points of the story. After that, with episode 13, The Blue Spirit, which we end up getting one of the biggest freaking, like, what the... Whoa moments, like, plot twists ever. One thing I do wish they had something from that episode that we kept was... the Yuyan archers. They bring them up like right at the beginning. That they're so good that they can pin a fly from 100 yards away to a wall without killing it. I'm like, what? That's insane.
They're like, never show up again.
Never show up again. Supposed to be some of the most highly trained elite archers in the entire military, and they're in one little swamp episode. Like, what the?
I never started to think about that. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, not every... Yeah, because we even get those swamp dudes later on in the show and stuff, and when Aang gets his Toph vision and all that, but, like, they don't really... They show up, like, one more time, I think, later. So there's certain characters and certain, like, groups and stuff that they'll kind of be like, here they are. There they go. Which is fine, because they don't need to be in, like, everything, and they just didn't factor them into the overall story.
A surprising amount of those characters did make a return.
That is true, though.
But let's see. Some characters that didn't come back, we already skipped over the episode 11, The Great Divide, which we are talking about, is a very notorious, right? As a standalone episode, as a cartoon, it's not bad per se. It's just, unlike the other episodes of Avatar, even though quote unquote fillery episodes,
I was gonna say first off, it feels like filler.
They still have some kind of element to include that helps build the characters or plot in some way, even if it's not the entire thing, right? Like when they go to the island of Kyoshi kind of early in the show, right? Oh, not a whole lot of that is particularly meaningful. They were talking about the freaking riding koi fish, and Aang was getting hit on by little girls, right? But we got to meet Suki, and we got a little bit of an underlying idea of the Kyoshi Island, which we learned a little bit more about later in the show with, Avatar Kyoshi herself and other episodes. Yeah. So we still got a little bit of substance, is what I'm saying. Yeah. There's like nothing that came out of...
In Great Divide.
It's literally just filler.
Plus, which again, people like Nostalgia Critic will be quick to bring up, other people probably might feel the same way, is that it's kind of not really in Aang's character to just lie like that. No. Just to end a feud.
Yeah.
To get everyone to work toward the goal. Because not that ever really comes up again. He doesn't use any type of like trickery or deceit to his advantage after that. No. It just kind of happens because I feel the writers are probably like, we need to get to the end of this episode. What do we do? Make them come up with a cute story, whatever. Which they literally make fun of by, season 3 with the Ember Island players.
Let's keep flying.
I love that too. The self-awareness that isn't too on the nose and it's not super in your face. Because talk about filler that still has a point for what it's worth. There's a lot of interesting conversations that arise in that episode. And a lot of just the fact that it's one of those episode recap or series recap episodes. Yeah. Which a lot of people tend to dread usually, but they did it because it's just flashbacks. It's the flashback episode or whatever, But I know Yu-Gi-Oh! Was fucking notorious for that shit. Because by the end of like seasons 3 and 4, they would just recap everything for no real reason.
Show?
Yu-Gi-Oh!
No, other show does a lot? Naruto.
Oh god, I've heard there's a shitload of
unbelievable
filler in Naruto.
So I know. I'm sure you haven't really seen much of it.
No.
One of the very beginning, you kind of learn like Naruto is kind of he had a rough past and kind of a sad story, kind of in the beginning of his life, right? And so there's this particular scene where he's kind of alone and sitting on a bench swing, and the amount of times you see flashbacks of him sitting alone on that bench swing throughout the 800 episode show or whatever it is, it's fucking stupid. Like, probably like 10% of the episodes include the damn scene.
Oh wow.
That's enough about Naruto. But yes, so let's see. After 13, probably when they go to the air temple and they see all of the people that had moved in. They're flying or gliding around on those gliders.
Because I love too how they introduce really cool concepts like that. Like the cool part about Avatar 2 that I like throughout the whole show, up until like when they get into the Fire Nation and have to be like, okay, now we need to start concocting the plan for the end game.
Yeah.
Because that's where the show focuses on, because we're ending. The whole journey is going to different temples and places and kingdoms and wherever, and just seeing and helping out people along the way. Like, that is really cool. Obviously, it's not the first show to do that, but like how they do it, how it's executed, how simplistically yet like intricately they do it is really cool, because of the issues that they come across, the characters they have to help, just the lessons learned, because there are morals every so often, but they're not fucking He-Man levels of let's turn to the camera and direct this shit to the audience.
Yes.
But it's still kind of baked in there, like on a more subtle kind of scale.
Okay, and just to clarify, as we've seen, we've already skipped a bunch of episodes. We're not going to clarify every single episode because that's going to be way too long.
No, yeah, exactly.
We're just kind of bringing out some meaningful points to ourselves, because
this
if we were to talk about every episode, it would take way too long.
Jesus, yeah, it's the equivalent of like how we did the Smash Brothers episode, where we just like went over what we liked and didn't like about like each game.
Yeah.
So we're just going through the seasons and all that. What I like about this though is that I'm going to be talking in a more general sense, because I haven't watched the show all the way through in a while, so I can't exactly pinpoint my personal like episode highlights or like favorite episodes.
Yeah. You can. I've seen it a little bit too many times.
He got me the fucking whole series. He is the hugest fan. He was the one wanting to get me into this in the first place. So, and this is just the culmination of us, how we've had our Avatar talk throughout different VidGames like playthroughs and
I'm
stuff.
sure if you watch enough of our episodes, we bring it up fairly regularly.
You'll either do a reference for comedy's sake, or we'll just bring it up in conversation sometimes. It was leading up to this, basically.
Like Chase, Marcelo's like, Chase, we got to just do an Avatar.
We need to do an Avatar episode of the podcast.
Like, it gets brought up too much to not address it.
Exactly. I love you continue doing like your episode pinpoints. I'm gonna talk in a more general sense, and then whatever like you remind me of will be like, oh fuck yeah, I remember that from the show. Was there anything else from season 1?
Yeah, because I just wanted to clarify that season. Like, one of the things, again, it's more of the ground laying work, right? Because you learn about them and talking about like air power, and one of the most meaningful parts of that episode is the very end when they discover the broken war balloon.
Yes. Oh my god.
This defeat is leading to like many new victories or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it was said, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
And right, and we don't see those until basically the finale of the entire show. Yeah. Not quite the invasion. And you're like, oh fuck, there's the blimps.
Yeah, because that was the one thing, and they mentioned that in the show too. They're like, yeah, we always have like the high ground advantage over them because they're not airborne. Yeah. A lot of us can go airborne to an extent, and yeah. Plus, I know we're going a little further ahead, but just what happens in that 4-part finale, and how Sozin just fucking destroys shit. It's not Sozin. What's his name?
Ozai.
Sozai. The part of this podcast where we get names wrong. It was bound to happen eventually. Sozin's Comet is what I was thinking of.
Sozin's the one during Roku's.
Yes. But Ozai, when he just starts devastating everything, like that was the thing that they were always afraid of, that the Fire Nation would be able to do, because they have the power to do that. They just didn't have the advantage of actually being airborne to do so. So to see how that started there, my point being that's awesome.
To finalize season 1, we'll talk about 18 through 20, which are the Northern Air Temple. The Northern Water Tribe.
Yeah.
There is a Northern Air Temple, but that is not where they were. The Northern Water Tribe. They get there and they have that whole scene where they're like, it is forbidden for women to learn water bending.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Some
what do you
fucking
mean?
Sexist shit.
Like, you just gotta go heal.
Yeah.
And Katara's like, nah, man.
No. No, that's again, it's just tackling certain things that not a lot of kids shows tackle outright like that. Like,
yeah.
It'll be more on the subtle side, but here it's not super subtle.
No, it's like, no, we're sexist.
Yeah. No, she says the word sexist in the pilot, doesn't she?
In the first episode. Yeah.
She calls Sokka sexist. I'm like, whoa. What the fuck? Can you say that on the show?
It's like the second or third line in the show.
Because he says something about, like, this is a man's job or whatever. He says some bullshit like that. And
Because they addressed it there, and then even
Sokka used to be a little sexist when he first started out.
Yeah, when they went to Kyoshi Island, he's like,
oh my god, yeah, exactly.
He can't do anything.
But that was cool how he started to learn their ways later, because he was like, I can't win against Suki, she's too fucking cool.
Yeah. but yeah, you get more of that. And you get to see how much different the Northern Water Tribe is from the Southern Water Tribe. The Southern Water Tribe is just a couple igloos.
Yeah.
And the Northern Water Tribe is this extremely fancy, like
palace.
Yeah.
Almost.
Like, oh my gosh, it's
castle.
It looks amazing. But yeah, so that had you see Paku has he was the one that made his grandma's necklace, and the whole reason why she left, and yeah, which gets us into the finale, which is the invasion of the Northern Water Tribe, which you already kind of brought up. Zhao killing the fish, the koi fish, the moon spirit specifically.
That was really cool. Yeah.
Getting through the face stealer Ko.
Oh my god, the first introduction to the spirit world.
It was not the first introduction to the spirit world.
Was it not? Oh no, you're right. It was the other. What was that? What was that creature? He looked like a panda.
Yes,
he was a panda.
Heibai.
Yeah.
Yes, because remember, that's one thing about that episode. Yeah, Winter Solstice Part 1. I actually have always questioned that, because we'll go off into Korra a little bit, just for a moment. You know how... Oh, what's her name? You can tell I don't know Korra nearly as well. I have seen it... I think I've only seen that one twice through, where Avatar Last Airbender I've seen, like...
I've seen Korra a few times.
A ridiculous amount of time. One of Tenzin's kids learns how to do like spirit projection, because that's really more what it's like in that episode. Because remember, he's Jinora. Yes, yeah. He's kind of just invisible. He is the spirit himself, walking around the human world still, right? Because I think they were still trying to figure out what they wanted to do with the spirit world. You know, because later, because he was like, I'm in the spirit world. He's just kind of. Right.
Yeah.
He meets Roku's dragon in that episode, and they're right, and so.
Yeah, I forgot about
But yeah, they don't actually go into the actual spirit world. It's more akin to the spirit projection, because he's just kind of like stuck, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, so that was the first time. But this is the first time we had to see the actual like spirit world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was big.
Ko was fucking awesome. It's creepy as shit.
Someone is trying to kill them, or going to kill them, I think is what he said. He's so intimidating. How? And he goes, the koi fish! And then he just looks in and he's like...
Yeah.
Super flat.
The whole point about him is that if you show any emotion and he sees you, he'll steal your face.
Yes.
So Aang has to talk to this dude and not show... He has to be completely fucking stoic. He cannot show any emotion, even in his speech. One
of the biggest moments to me in that finale was when Zhao grabbed the fish and you see the moon turn red and all of the powers start... All of the water bending for everyone just basically gets shut off like a freaking light. Just click.
Yeah, the color goes out and everything. Yeah.
The mood changes dramatically. And then when Iroh comes in, because Aang is explaining to Zhao, like, this is a matter of like world balance. Like, you don't understand what this is going to unleash, right? This is like, this is not just bad for the Water Tribe, it's bad for everyone, right? Including you. And so Zhao steps in and it's like, he's right, Zhao. I mean, whatever you do to that spirit, I will unleash on you tenfold.
I remember that.
Let it go now.
And that's a cool little peek into Iroh and just his love for, like, animals, spirits, the world. He's not... Because you even get a little bit of his backstory, and it's not... I love, too, how he's that much of a character where, like, they go into some of Iroh's backstory here and there throughout the show, but never that much.
Yeah.
Because...
You understand that he once was a pretty devout soldier of the Fire Nation.
Was he close to, or did he overtake Ba Sing Se?
He breached the wall.
Okay.
But he did not overtake it.
Okay.
Because his son died at the Battle of Ba Sing Se, and it kind of killed his motivation to continue.
Okay.
Right? But he was the first, up until the drill episode, he was the first and only person to ever breach the wall.
Okay.
Right? Which shows Iroh is no schmuck.
Yeah, no.
Right.
If he wanted to, he could have been right up there. Like Ozai, even.
Yeah.
Like, he could have just fucking raised hell.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the most powerful firebenders, right?
That's what makes him so cool, is that being a bigger man than that and having, this more, like, wiseness about him.
Worldly view to everything.
Yes.
I know.
Being in tune with... Because he was one of the first ones to see... What was that... What was the episode that I'm thinking of? We probably already went over it, but we didn't go over this moment where he's captured, I think, by Zhao or whoever, but he sees the spirit fly overhead.
No one else it wasn't by Zhao. It was by Earth Kingdom.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, and that was during the Winter Solstice episode.
Okay.
Yeah, they were... How did they get captured? Oh, they were searching for the Avatar, and
he was in a hot tub. He was naked.
He was in a hot tub.
It was awkward.
He was in a hot tub. That's right.
Didn't even bother clothing him. They just took him.
He made his own hot tub. His own little spring.
What was I gonna say? But yeah, from moments like that to moments like telling Zhao like what you're doing. I'm gonna raise hell on you. In that sense, I'm obviously paraphrasing, but like, shows just how fine-tuned he is with bits of the world like that, because especially what happens by Korra, like that's a natural step for his character. I feel it just made sense to advance him like that.
So then we see he actually ends up killing the moon spirit, and that's when we got that backstory about Yue and how she got life from the moon, and then she ended up making the ultimate sacrifice essentially to save basically the entire planet. Right. Become the moon spirit. And then Aang goes freaking roid rage mode in the Avatar state with the ocean spirit and freaking destroys an entire Navy fleet.
That was a really cool part of the show. That was a nice conclusion to the first season.
And then the very last scene, Iroh's a traitor and your brother Zuko is a failure. I have a task for you. And you get to see Azula's face for the second time, because you get to see her once in the storm, when everyone's like, what the heck, who's that?
Yeah, it was this little fucking punk.
Because it's Iroh, Zhao, and Azula, which you just don't know the name of yet, and then there's a bunch of random people in the back, right? So I know when a lot of people watch the reactions, like, who's that? Why is she drawn with so much detail?
For this flashback. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yep, which gets us into season 2.
Season 2.
Yeah, because Zhao was freaking murdered by the ocean spirit. Well, not.
Seeing what happens to him in Korra for a brief little cameo moment.
You're like, oh
that
my god!
Yeah,
I know.
That show was awesome. At first I was like, wait, who the hell is that? And I was like, oh, fuck.
It's so much worse than death.
Yeah. It's like eternal damnation to just relive that bit of where you last were in your life
years and for
like ever, yeah. Fucking mistaking Tenzin for fucking Aang. Yeah. I was like, oh,
you're him,
shit.
the last Airbender.
Season 2.
Yep, we get introduced to Azula, who we find out very quickly. They do a really good job of introducing her in the very first episode, actually, when she's talking to one of her like soldiers who's like piloting the boat, and he's like, Your Highness, the tides are not going to allow us to bring the boat in, or something like that. And she's like, can you please explain to me who commands the ship?
God, I'm trying to remember that
because she's like,
moment.
It's like, do the tides command this ship? I'm like, I don't understand. It's like, do the tides command this ship? He's like, no, Your Highness. It's like, And if I were to have you thrown overboard, would the rocks think twice about smashing you against the rocky shore? No, Your Highness. Well then, you should worry less about the tides who've already made up their mind about killing you, and worry more about me, who's still mowing it over. That's one of the very first things we hear of Azula, and you're immediately like, oh, okay. This is the kind of character we're going to have for the rest of the show. Holy shit.
I mean, I want to take this time, too, to, like, just address the naming conventions of the characters as well, because Azula, first off, it still fits within the line of... Because I noticed this the more I was watching the show on my, like, fucking third or fourth time watching it all the way through. How just, again, the world building and having certain regions of the world, which is true for even us in real life, and having naming conventions, pretty, what would you say, common, for lack of a better descriptor, to certain regions of the world or wherever, especially they're pronounced or they're spelled. So you have, like, you know, Sokka, Katara, you know, Korra. So, like, they've got very kind of harder sounding sort of names. You have Zuko, Azula, Sozin, Ozai, so a lot of Z's in there, and it just sounds very, like, kind of grittier on the tongue and on, like, the palate because you have to pronounce those Z's. Mm-hmm. And that's really cool. But then also Azula specifically doubles as, like, a pun name because Azul, blue, Spanish for blue, and her fire is blue. Yeah. So it's just so fucking clever.
Yeah. There's so many little things.
I love shit like that.
Yeah. No, they did a really good job. And then you have Toph, because it sounds like tough. Yeah.
I fucking love Toph. She's one of my favorite characters.
Which we meet in book 2.
Yeah, she's so funny. But then there's still that emotional background to her and stuff. And it's just, every character has some sort of depth to them.
One of the other meaningful parts of the first episode is learning, because, of course, that general forces Aang into the Avatar state, and you learn, and then Roku's like, okay, we need to teach you about how this is actually... It's like, if you are killed in the Avatar state, the reincarnation cycle will be broken, and the Avatar will cease to exist, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, ooh, that's a big kicker! That's a big flaw! It's a really, really big flaw!
It's like an oversight, almost. That's the cool thing, but it's still about, like, that balance, because...
If I was Aang, I would have been like, you couldn't have told me that the first time? What the heck?
That happened to me?
Yeah.
Because when the first time that happened to him, it was just, he didn't even understand it fully. It was just this, like, I'm feeling all these emotions at once, and I don't know how to let them out, so let's just let them out. And that's what resulted.
The Avatar state is just this big boom.
That's what resulted. But then, having to learn to control that, you can't always rely on it as my OP get out of jail card kind of, you know, thing for any situation where, like, you're in a pickle. And that rule to the lore cements that. You can't just roid rage whenever you want. When you do, there are going to be consequences. You have to just... You're not invincible. Yeah. You have to watch out.
And a little bit in Korra, I remember Korra she turns on her Avatar state just for a moment to, like, beat a race.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And Tenzin's like, you not... you can't just turn it on for little shitty things like that.
That was the cool part between her and Aang. I think that's what I think that was an aspect, again, just to talk a little bit about Korra, to draw in fans from Avatar into this new world and new show and everything, is because she's such a different character from Aang, and how he was more innocent, he's younger, having to learn stuff from there, but she was a fast learner from a young age. She already had, 2 to at least 3 of the elements already down as a kid? Mm-hmm. Like at 9 or some shit, or 8, so, like, that was already crazy. And then, but it's the recklessness of being a teenager, she's gotta be, like, fucking, 16, 15 by the time, like, we're following her properly. So, just using them for, like, you know, I'm cool, whatever, I'll do it. Like, having that kind of, like, teen, like, tood to
teen
it.
Tood?
Teen tood. That was a cool aspect to her character. And yeah, being able to even already having the Avatar state pretty much down for the most part. But that was a cool thing, too, going back into Avatar, about, like, where Season 2 takes stuff, the characters in the worlds, and the lore, and the rules to certain things, and the bending off of Season 1, because like we just said, Season 1 was the groundwork for the beginnings of the lore, the establishment of the characters in the world, and the powers, seeing them only used in very circumstantial areas and whatever, and seeing how it can evolve. But then we get, Azula with her fire. It's more intense. She learned it.
It's blue. Oh yeah, because in that episode, the first episode, we get to see her bend lightning. Which before lightning,
that, yes,
Iroh redirects it from the ship in the middle of the storm, right?
Yeah.
But at that point, you're like, okay, was that a real thing, or was that just a spoofy cartoon thing, right?
Yeah.
But then when you see Azula actually channel lightning, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
No, firebenders can do lightning.
But then explaining that and going in depth about it, and Iroh showing Zuko that the fact that certain things like that came from, I think, didn't he say at one point that learning how to channel lightning and to redirect it is to almost kind of do practices similar, closer to water bending?
Yeah, he said he learned how to redirect lightning by studying the water benders.
Yeah, that is so fucking cool. Having that connectivity to everything.
Yeah, so book 2, it really starts to expand the bending, because not only that, episode 4, I think it's 4, is the swamp, where you get to see the swamp benders. They're water benders too, but up until then you only knew about the North and South Pole.
Yeah.
Woo, nice. I had to sneeze.
But having layers to it, that is the cool part.
And then later you meet the sandbenders, which you've only seen standard earthbenders up until that point, right? So, and then of course there's Toph's big reveal for metal bending later, right? So there's a lot of that.
It's so fucking dope.
Progress So book 2 does a lot of that. So of course the next big episode would probably be 2-6, the Blind Bandit meeting Toph, who is just a fantastic character.
She's awesome.
Yeah. She just the spunk that she has is just kind of refreshing little extra thing to the team, and I like it a lot. Not to mention she's just a total freaking badass right out of the gate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So confident and hard-headed and just go kind of mentality, just
because I feel like the characters don't have one. No one's flanderized. No one just has one note. They're not one note. They don't have one emotion to them. They don't have one.
No, everyone's multi-layered.
Aspect that drives them, really. Because even Zuko, you can say on the surface, his whole thing is about catching the Avatar. Well, yeah, but why does he want him? And how far will he go after him? And all of that's explored. All of it's explained.
Yeah. Toph doesn't get quite as much of a background depth as some of the other characters of the team, I think.
But it's enough to understand why she is how she is and why she does what she does.
Yes. Correct. Yep.
Which sometimes is all you need, because she's already on her own, when they establish her by literally introducing her, you see how she uses her earthbending since she's blind, and how she can fight, why she wants to fight. That's already all pretty much answered right then and there, and that's enough of a reason to follow her, because she's already funny, she's already badass. Those are the two aspects that every fucking character in the show has. Mm-hmm. So she was an awesome addition.
One of the next big episodes after that is probably the library, which we did did hear a little bit about before, because Zhao in the finale of season 1 actually says how he learned about how the spirits were mortal and could be killed, because he found it in a secret library, and there's a little tiny scene of him.
I don't even remember that detail.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, and so. When you go into the library and you find that room that's been completely destroyed, that contained all the firebending information, it's because Zhao was there, and he had already kind of briefly explained it in the finale of season 1. And of course, that's a big emotional episode, because Appa gets stolen by the Sandbender and is gone for almost an entire half of a season. For that. And getting to see, because up until that point, Aang's always been a pretty happy, so getting to see the complete opposite side of Aang.
Yeah.
Because when you get stuck in the desert, when they're looking for a way out or finding the Sandbenders, you see them, they walk into that giant hive, and he just flat out murders one of those wasps.
Yeah.
It's hard to see, but if you look really closely, it gets split in half.
I remember that.
It's really far away, and I'm pretty sure
that's probably intentional. That was probably fully intentional, because he does not kill, but in that one small moment, that was just pure raw emotion.
Yeah. He's not himself at this moment. No, he's so upset about losing Appa, which you can see when he roid rages on those sandbenders.
That moment was fucking insane.
You muzzled Appa!
Just immediately as I start going, you're like, oh, fuck. Fuck! And that was the crazy part, because everyone got scared of him. And it's like, shit, this is a big moment.
Yeah, even Sokka, because Toph has not seen him in that kind of state
She's never heard him in that.
Yeah, because
heard him, first off.
Katara and Sokka already have seen him have a couple moments like that. Right? It's particularly the biggest one when he finds Gyatso's skeleton. Right? They're like, whoa! And Katara's trying to calm down, but like, we're your family now. Right? So that's why Katara's pretty calm, like...
Yeah, she grabs him by the hand.
She's not happy with what she's seeing, but she's not uncomfortable per se.
Yeah.
Where Sokka...
Well, because she feels his pain. Well, she understands, even if she doesn't fully, like, you know...
One of those that when you see Toph, because Toph is concerned, because she's never seen it, you can see on her face, she's like, shit. And Sokka's telling her,
she can
like,
hear it.
Everyone's just gotta fucking run.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, get out of here. Because
even the Sandbenders themselves didn't. The Sandbenders themselves were like, "Well, we didn't know that he belonged to the Avatar.
Yeah.
Well, we'll help you look for him." And he's just like, "No,
no.
You fucked up.
Consider yourself dead."
Shit's insane. Yeah. However, that entire little mini arc there gave us the cactus juice.
Drink cactus juice. It'll quench ya. Nothing's quenchier. It's the quenchiest. I think you've had enough. Who lit Toph on fire?
Oh my god.
It's a giant mushroom. Maybe it's friendly. And then they have the silliest animation you see. Friendly mushroom. And it's
he's all
wavy. Mushy giant friend.
Oh my god. Sokka. Soka. You kind of got this like, why'd you have to bring that up again?
Yeah, why'd you have to fucking do that?
Avatar Ong. And
then the other part of is season 4 really starts to bring out kind of the dark side of stuff, because you get to episode 14, which is this when you get to Ba Sing Se for the first time, like Walls and Secrets, I think is what it's called, and you meet Judy, and they're quickly finding out that there's some shit going on in the in the city, right? And there's
what are those arc words, Chase?
What
are those arc words that they taught her?
Oh,
that they have.
There is no war in Ba Sing Se. Yeah.
Everyone loves to quote that.
Yes, there is no war in Ba Sing Se. Yeah, because then you get explained by, what's his name? Long Fang. You know, you kind of figure out that the king is just a figurehead and doesn't really have any actual power, and that he's pretty much running like almost the entire show with the Dai Li. And you learn, and then Jet, who sees Iroh heat up his fucking tea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even Zuko's like, "What are you doing?" For a wise old man, that was a stupid move.
Oh god, I forgot about all that.
Right, because
they befriend each other, Zuko and Jet, for a while.
Before that incident, though.
Before
they were on
the
boat. He's like, "I know who you are. You're an outcast." And you're like, just like me. Yeah, because they end up stealing the food from that boat.
Yeah.
The captain. But yeah, he loses his patience, tries to attack Zuko, gets captured by the Dai Li, and then he gets brainwashed. And you're like, oh. And then you're like, he's getting brainwashed. And then you see at the end of their conversation with Long Fang, the main gang, he's like, "Now Judy will show you home." And Katara's like,
completely different
"What the heck happened to Judy?" And it's a completely different person. You're like,
because if the first one broke down for a minute, didn't she? Like in public, didn't she kind of have a weird little moment?
Well, yeah, because they go out into the palace and she's like, "You need to get the hell out of here."
Yeah,
right fucking now. Like, this is bad. Get out.
Yeah. And they're like, "Well, bring the new one in."
Deleted.
The fucking room where they're doing it to all of them.
Yeah,
it's creepy.
Like, a lot of people like as an episode, consider like the bloodbending episode to be this creepiest overall. But I always felt that particular scene, like that one scene, was one of the creepiest in the entire show. Yeah. Just when you see them all just with that wide eye, completely like taking over stare. I'm Judy. Welcome to Bossing Say. We're so lucky to have our walls to create order. You know, like fuck, dude, it's so fucking. We find Appa in that episode.
It's emotional as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of...
having his own episode, what happened to him? That one, shit.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of emotional scenes in that, right? You have Iroh's story with the Tales of Bossing Say. You get that scene where he finds out his kid. It's so sad. And a couple other, even the one with Momo where he's looking for Appa. You feel bad for Momo there, too.
Yeah.
Sokka's is funny.
The haiku. Yeah, I love that. I love that
like
one.
I paddle my canoe, I'll paddle yours too. Like, oh, Sokka. But yes, very powerful scene with Iroh. Very powerful episode with Appa's lost days. You feel so fucking bad for Appa.
Fucking
awful. And then a very powerful just relief when you finally get him back.
Yeah. I think there were two moments that made me tear up, and they both were Iroh. So, yeah, that was his part of the stories was one of them.
If I had to guess, the other part was when he reunites with Zuko. Yeah, because it just feels so good.
It's a combination. Every time it sets something up, it pays off later.
Yeah.
So,
and then
how we talked about the betrayal.
Yeah. Yep.
It finally comes to a head, and they forgive one another. And Iroh was always going to forgive him. He just needed him to see first the shit he had to go through what he had to go through. So to get to that moment, I was like, "Oh, yeah,
fucking, yep." Gosh dang it! And then let's see. Yes, that leaves us with the last couple episodes with the Earth King finally finding out about all the corruption. Long Fang gets arrested, who then starts his coup so he can try and take over the generals and stuff and get his power back. Azula swipes in. Oh yeah, because she's during the Appa's lost days, you see her fight Suki's team, and you don't actually see the conclusion of it. But then at the end, you see the king saying hi to what he believes is the Kyoshi warriors, and then you see it's Azula, Mai and Ty Lee all wearing their uniforms. You're like, ooh, fuck. Yeah. No bueno.
She's a fucking mastermind, I swear to God.
Mm-hmm.
That's the creepy. She's like the fucking Joker. She's like one of those characters that's like, they're just fucking out of it, but there is this deep-rooted, like, very direct, like, this is my plan, and this is, how we're going to do it, and it fucking works. Because they can just brute force their way into the plan working, because everything's calculated. Like, it's fucking cool to see.
And that's because the first season ends on a good note with the Northern Water Tribe being saved. Book 2 does not go quite so swimmingly as we know.
They amp it up.
Aang basically died.
Yeah.
And the Earth King is done. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing about that whole Bossing Say. Because you go through like the entire first half of the show going like, I want to see Bossing Say. They keep bringing it up. It's supposed to be the Earth Kingdom capital. It's supposed to be pretty much impenetrable. And when you see it for the first time, it's just absolutely massive, sprawling city for just miles and miles and miles. Right? Because we have the biggest city up till then was probably Omashu. Right, which is pretty big. Or the Northern Water Temple, I keep saying temple. Play too much Zelda, guys. Northern Water Tribe.
Yeah.
And, so when you see Bossing Say, like, holy fuck. Right, because especially for the era that they're in, they don't exactly have to be fair, they are earthbenders, so building the houses is probably significantly easier for them than anyone else.
But the train system is really cool to see, and just how it works.
Where they Flintstone them around with their feet.
yeah, but it's so cool to see. And then to learn the place is corrupt as fuck. Like it's just that is where the drama and the action
And then Korra, it's still corrupt as fuck.
Yeah, it's not more so, yeah.
It's just as fucked up.
Fucking
Dai Li.
Queen. How she fucking goes out.
Yeah.
Dear Lord. Talk about a fucking dark death.
I know, because in The Last Airbender, we can see we have Yue's death, which only kind of counts as still kind of alive as the moon spirit. Right? She died.
Yeah.
Right? But, and then Jet, of course, who was more violently killed, but they actually let him die off a screen. Of course, they didn't show him with, like, his ribs broken or anything like that, because it's a Nickelodeon show, right? But you knew he was messed up, but I think they did it well with saying, like, he's lying with Toph.
Yeah. It was,
And they kind of made fun of it a little bit in the flashback episode.
Yeah.
Like, did Jet just die?
Not really sure.
Yeah.
How's Sokka say it? He's like,
it's really unclear.
Yeah.
No, but he died.
Yeah.
And then presumably Zhao died. We know that we found out in Korra that he technically didn't.
Yeah.
Right. But there's no way you would have known that watching the show.
Yeah.
Right. You would have assumed that he just drowned.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think those are really the only ones.
In terms of, like, real deaths we see
in The Last Airbender. Yeah. And the koi fish died.
Yeah.
The moon spirit died. But that's it. I don't think anyone else really dies.
And then Korra said, let's watch on screen as
suicide homicides.
She has. Well, I was talking about the earthquake. Like, let's just watch on screen as Zahir just steals the air from out of her lungs.
Oh, I know.
On screen.
I was thinking about
you see her gasping for her eyes bulge out and she dies.
I was thinking about season 1 where he just ignites the fuel in the boat.
Oh yeah,
on screen.
On screen.
Boom. I was like, ooh.
I mean, by the time the explosion happens, they cut to a wide shot, but it's on screen that they blew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They blew
up. My God. Yeah, Korra went a little darker. That's only the tip of that iceberg. But
yeah, that kind of concludes season 2.
Yeah.
Which puts us into season 3.
Season 3.
Because at the end of season 2, you know, we're getting this build up. Zuko, we think, is gonna finally reignite with Aang, because they kind of been toying on it throughout the whole show.
That was the thing,
like
too.
Like with Blue Spirit, even at ending, because Aang has that little moment with him. It's like, I used to have this friend named Kuzan, and he was from the Fire Nation, and if I knew you back then, do you think we'd be friends too?
Uh-huh.
Right, and of course, Zuko just blasts a fireball at him, and then Aang runs away, right? That was the first moment. And so you're seeing, and then you see that culminate over the season, and then it doesn't end up coming to fruition, and then in book 1, you see him finally going home to the Fire Nation, and you can see he's like, I wonder how I've changed. You know, he's clearly got so much on his mind now, because he's just portrayed his uncle. You know, he's got so much more worldly view now. He's seen the Earth Kingdom. He's seen the Water Tribe. He's spent time with the public because he was on the run from the Fire Nation. He was, you know, and so he's gotten to see everyone and what they actually are like and their perspective and their culture. And he's starting to get that worldly view that Iroh has just slowly over.
Because he's befriended some people, but then unlike with Iroh, or maybe that could have happened to him in untold stories as well, but like, at least with Zuko, how we see it, he's a tragic character that thankfully doesn't die in the end, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he,
almost did.
Yeah. But, like, in his journey, and in, you know, episodes, again, predominantly in, like, Zuko alone, where, like, yeah, he can even befriend a couple people just by trying to do good, by trying to, you know, right some wrongs morally, at least in that regard, find some footing, some foundation to start over. See, can I start over? But then when people find out who he is, even just down to his bending...
Zuko alone is a perfect example.
Yeah, even just down to his bending.
You get to see like his mother and how she's had an influence on him and why he's a bit more different than Azula, because Azula's more of a daddy's girl.
Yeah.
Zuko's more of a mama's boy.
Well, because, having that grounded humbleness kind of there through his mother versus Azula, just... That's what Zuko could have been if, you know, completely under his dad, but, like, she was the one, so she's got that, like, you know, that toughened, like, I can just face whatever, and I'm going to win out and be on top. That kind of mentality.
Zuko's always had to kind of struggle. And then, but yeah, in that Zuko Alone episode, right, the kid really likes Zuko, and then the moment he firebends, he's like, I fucking hate you. Yeah,
and he just learns, whether it's his title or what, or just what he bends, then he's just kind of
he did admit that he was the son of Ozai, but even the...
But it was him trying to be like, that's really not me anymore, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, and even the village said, like, I've heard of you. You're not a prince. You're an outcast.
Yeah.
Your father burned and disowned you. And even they knew that, and they still hated him.
Yeah. It's... Oh, my God. Yeah. But it's needed because, like, it's just that journey of trying to get out of that shadow.
Yeah.
Trying to, you know...
Yeah, and like I said, at the first few episodes...
Reforge himself, as it were.
Book 3, you see that conflict, and it comes out in the beach episode because he's so frazzled. He's like, I don't know what's right and wrong anymore.
Yeah.
That's where the major transformation starts.
But I forget who asked him. I don't know if it was Azula or someone else who asked him, who are you angry at? And he said, myself. That was the culmination of that.
It was all three of them. They were all pressing him.
Yeah, that was the culmination of it all. It's cool to see. Especially, by season 3, that's when he really starts to... Because he'd blame everyone else, and he'd pin everything on everyone else. On it's your fault the Avatar got away, or it's this or that. Something was inconvenienced to let him get away, or we didn't capture him because this happened.
And Iroh in book 2 makes a big point of that, because when he's out down there getting Appa, and Iroh pops in, he's like, "What the? How did you get in here?" And he has that whole moment with him, like, "What are you gonna do now with the Avatar's bison? Keep it locked in our new apartment? Am I supposed to put on a pot of tea for him?"
That was a good speech. I hate that I don't remember it fully.
First, I gotta get it out of here, and then what? You never think these things through. This is exactly what happened when you captured the Avatar at the North Pole. You had him, and then you had nowhere to go. It's like, I would have figured something out. No. Like, if his friends hadn't found you, you would have frozen to death. Right? It was just... And he's
it's just logic he's spitting at him.
And that's the first time. Like, Iroh is, like, yelling at him. It's the first time he's like, Zuko, this shit's got to end.
Yeah.
Like...
Because he usually just either goes along with his plan, like a little sidekick, or he'll just solemnly sit idly by and watch him just fail at trying to...
Might blurb a little bit of wise stuff, but ultimately he's letting Zuko kind of make his own...
It tends to fall on deaf ears for Zuko in that sense, but that was the first time he was like, snap the fuck out of it. I'm going to talk to you like a parent in this instance, because this is just all kinds of fucked right now.
Yeah.
And being alone and separated from Iroh throughout season 3 is what made Zuko start to be like, oh shit.
You don't see Iroh much in season 3.
And for many reasons.
There are many layers to that. Of course, we know that
Mako passing away.
Passed away, right? So they were trying to figure out what they want to do from that. But it was good
because he was so smart.
Because he was captured, so there wasn't much reason to have him on screen
to speak anyway. Because every time he was on screen for those moments, he was sitting there, just mulling shit over in his own mind. He was in his own little world.
He spoke a couple times, like when that one Fire Nation guard came in. He spoke to her about, like, hey, thank you for the tea. There's without saying there's going to be invasion, he's like, you probably don't want to be here this afternoon. Right. But just a little couple blurbs. He doesn't really start... You don't get to finally hear his new voice actor a lot until the end of the season. Right. But even just with that, you can tell just throughout season 3,
he's
because
just sad,
Zuko has had so much influence from Iroh at this point, and you can finally see him start to grow. Even though Iroh is not there, his influence is still there because it's all finally coming to fruition through
Plus,
Zuko.
there are moments where Zuko just has to kind of, like, in some comedic, moments, has to kind of recreate what Iroh would say in that situation to him.
I love that.
So he can just have someone to fucking, like, talk to.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
I can see where he's practicing how to approach Aang when he finally decided that he's going to join their team.
Why am I so bad at being good?
That's one of the best lines. Why am I so bad at being good? Poor Zuko.
Oh god, Day of Black Sun. That is...
What a powerful episode.
Fucking hell.
His conversation with his father is one of the best ones
in the show.
Point.
That is the turnaround point where he realized, I know what I'm going to do now.
Like, It's 100%. I'm confident in my choice. I know what I've done wrong. I admit what I've done is wrong. Yeah. I recognize, the propaganda that I've been fed and lied to through the Fire Nation all of these years, and I see the world as it actually is,
Yeah.
And he really he's back because, he's always kind of taking Iroh somewhat for granted throughout the show, and then once he's not there anymore and he doesn't have that wisdom and that care and that support at his back, he realizes how truly important and amazing of an uncle he was, and appreciate all the things he had been taught.
Yeah,
it's all finally come together, and he's like, wow. I can't believe I've been trying to please you this whole time. Was I just literally the world's biggest piece of shit?
Yeah, it's so good. Watching the plan just fucking fail entirely, though. Also, was like the biggest. Like they thought they had everything planned, only for like every little facet of it to just get fucking deconstructed in the worst way.
Yeah, we jumped like halfway through the season, so let's
backtrack a little bit.
One of the best episodes, arguably the best episode, depending on who you ask.
Because they pack a lot into this
Episode 6, The Avatar and the Fire Lord, with Roku's backstory.
Yeah.
With Sozin. You see how the war began, and how Fire Nation isn't inherently evil. And we already kind of know that through Iroh and...
the kids you see later and how Aang kind of interacts with them. And because that's where they're going in this season.
Right? A lot of them... Right, and a lot of them, yeah, exactly. Like a lot of them, yes, there are evil people in the Fire Nation. We've seen that there are evil people in the Earth Kingdom as well.
Yeah.
Right. We learn that there's evil waterbenders that bloodbend the shit out of people.
But the cool thing too about making the Fire Nation kind of like the villains, again,
but
massive
most
quotes
of them
about
is just because they're fed all this propaganda bullshit.
But the cool thing too,
they're not actually bad people.
The cool thing that expands to the world, everyone's abilities, is the fact that it's something Aang learns, because the last element he has to master is firebending. Is that fire, if mishandled, is like so intense it can destroy, and everything else has been taught to us, the audience, and to the characters in the universe thus far. Before that episode, that was back in season 1, I think, was everything. The other 3 elements are a little more harmonious. They can do their own.
John has explained that.
Yeah,
Earth is stable.
Yeah,
right, and water, is cool and soothing, but fire is alive. That's why we say it breathes, it grows, right? Like a rock will not throw itself, but a fire will spread and destroy everything in its path if the firebender does not have the will to control it, right? And so that's the problem. It's like fire, although a very powerful element, a very useful element, is very dangerous and has the potential to be horrible if not controlled properly, right? And they make that a point by showing Zhao like completely just destroy all of his own boats because he's way too focused on Aang and just being a moron.
But like going back to fast forwarding again to where we are now, like just the fact that making the Fire Nation the ones to be the ones that everyone has to look out for, and why they're essentially trying to conquer like bits here and there throughout the world essentially, is because that's all of them coming together with that particular element is devastating. More so because of those very facts and lessons and stuff. So, like, that's a really interesting dynamic to it as well.
One of the biggest scenes, I think it's probably one of the first time, if not the first time, we hear Iroh speak. It's also in episode 6 at the end when he divulges to Zuko that he is the grandson of Avatar Roku. And you're like, what? He's half Fire Lord and half Roku, right? He has both sides of him, and I was explaining it's also it's partially because of his mother, as we were explaining, but it's also because the reason he has this conflict is because he's both. Which Azula also is, but she didn't turn out the same way Zuko did because she was so gung-ho about her father, whereas Zuko is more gung-ho
that was just how she learned, and that's what she gravitated towards, and she let herself gravitate towards that, because even down to, what was it, I think the gifts that Iroh gave to them while he was away or whatever, didn't he try to give Azula like a doll and she just didn't fucking care about it or something? She burned it. Yeah. So like, it was him, that was his way, because he never really meddled, I think, with her the way he does with...
Iroh's the one that gave her that doll, also.
That's what I said.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm saying Iroh never. That was his way of trying to, balance that out in Azula of, well, you can be strong, but don't let it get to you in the way that he's doing with Zuko throughout the whole show. But he kind of just stays away from, because he even says at one point, isn't he like, yeah, she's crazy.
Yeah. Because Zuko's like, I know what you should be saying. She's my sister. I should try to get along with her. And he's like, no.
See, so he knows. And it is really sad because it's like, in some alternate telling of the story, how would it have been if he tried to take them both under his wing or something? Because she would have been a hell of a lot different. But that exact dynamic is what makes, her, Azula and Zuko so interesting as, like, rivals and eventual just enemies by the end of the show. Like, it's interesting. It makes you think about it,
Yes.
But go on. Where were we again?
But yeah, I was just talking about, like, Zuko found out that these...
The one thing I wanted to mention about that, because even if she did know that kind of lineage was within her as well, she probably wouldn't even care. Mm-hmm. Really. Because of how far along she is with her father and everything.
I mean, knowing Ozai, he probably didn't even bother her to...
No.
Yeah.
At all, yeah.
I think the comics explain some of that, but I don't remember... You need to read those too.
I need them. So I can read them.
Let's see, episode 8. The Puppet Master.
Oh my god. It's a good one.
Yeah, when we see...
Another layer to
Yep.
waterbending.
Yep. One of the most powerful and feared forms of bending in the world.
So much so that later, when she's way older, Katara outlaws it.
Yep. Yep. She's like, nope. Negative.
Yeah,
nope,
I know what that shit's like. Y'all don't need that power.
Yeah. It's fucked up. But yeah, like, that's such a dark episode. Of course, you see Hama and explaining, like, because she learned some other things too, like how to be resourceful. Like, you can pull it right out of thin air.
Yeah.
Right. You can pull it out of the flowers. Just explain, like, of course it's sad that the flowers just died, but if you're in a strange environment, you do what you have to survive.
And that's because she had to do that.
Yeah.
Because of her backstory.
Right? So, Katara still learned some, even over the bloodbending, there were still some lessons to learn. But yeah, Hama was just crazy.
What she used, yeah, exactly. But even Katara, that's what I love about the fucking show, is that they take lessons, even if they're kind of small, even if, it's establishing further use of the abilities, further use of stuff like that. And the characters don't just learn it for that episode, like, because that's what they have to learn in this episode, and then it never comes back later. She first off, she bloodbends later, but also, Katara uses her sweat to get out of a situation with Toph.
Yes.
That's fucking cool. Yeah. Like, remembering, you can pull it out from, like, anywhere. So isn't she, like, running in place to make herself sweat or something?
That happened before...
Did it?
Hama. Yes.
Did it really?
Yes, because when you get to Hama, she actually says, like, oh yeah, one time I used my sweat to...
I don't even remember that was the order.
And Hama said, wow, that's actually really resourceful. Good job. Yeah, because that was from...
At least they connect.
Yeah.
But the fact that they do.
It was the other way around, but yes.
But the fact that they do, that's still the cool part, is her learning that about Katara, that's what she did, and then being like, you could pull from other places too.
Speaking of other forms of bending, kind of skipped over a little bit too. Combustion Man.
Oh, Sparky Boom Man.
Yes, with his freaking psychic explosions. Yeah. Dude, the way they showed it in the first scene, because the music completely drops, and just for like the first 30 seconds to a minute, it's just the sound effects.
Just the sound direction, the sound design. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, and you're like...
Those pops, yeah. That is the
like,
one...
What the hell is that?
Question. Because another character similar to him is in fucking Korra. Do they ever, like in comics, novels, anything, do they ever explain what that is?
So
where they come from?
From what I can tell, it's sort of like bloodbending or metal bending or lava bending.
Where does it come from? What kind of a bending is it?
Right, it's still part of firebending, of course, but how it works is like, not everyone can metal bend. You might be an earthbender, but you might not be gifted with that, or lava bending.
Yeah.
Right, you don't necessarily have the ability. You might be a waterbender. It doesn't necessarily mean you can bloodbend, even if it is a full moon, right? Not everyone. And so same thing. It's, from what I understand, combustion bending is not only a rare subcategory of firebending like those, but it's one of the rare subcategories of anything ever. Like
we only know 2 characters that can do it.
Correct. It's it's like it happens, but it's extremely, extremely rare. And so my understanding, if they do explain it, I don't remember what it is. I've always kind of interpreted it as that it's so rare that no one really truly does understand, right?
Like how exactly they can hone it. Because it's almost like they don't even have to do anything. The cool thing, again, about the world building of how the abilities are used in Avatar is they mix in the elemental abilities, like these powers, with martial arts, some type of a fighting style.
Yeah. Same thing, like Airbender and Korra, they have the flying, right? The Zahir, and only one unseen Airbender, we just get his name.
He like read
Guru
from
Lahima or something like that was able to do it. Same thing, right? Technically, an airbending ability to do it without a glider, extremely fucking rare, right? And the only way we did get a little bit more explanation about that one. Is
you had to like drop everything and focus on it. You have to be
pretty much untethered to the world, right?
Yeah.
No
possessions.
Yeah. Which that's why Zahir was able to do it, because once his girlfriend died, he lost that final connection to the world, right? And
it was in that episode.
And they kind of tie it in with Avatar 2 in Book 2, when he's trying to learn from Guru Patik to right. The chakras. One of the things is like you have to let go of earthly possession. Yeah. Right. That's how you unlock your full potential, right? By focusing on other things rather than the energy around you, and energy within yourself, you limit your ability somewhat, right? And so they kind of tie that in. But let's see. There's the other episode we skipped over is Sokka's master.
Oh, that was a good one.
You get a sword. I like that they made that meteor sword.
That
she
loses.
Damn it, badass.
It was cool. I was again in that nostalgic video I was watching. He actually this is why you might agree. You might at least see where he's coming from. Maybe you won't agree, but I guess it's something of a divisive aspect about Sokka to talk about, is how he's seen as the comedic relief for a lot of the show. He does have his good moments, his serious moments, his emotional moments, his
leadership
moments.
Strategic.
Yes. So when that episode kind of comes around, because and a lot of cartoons tend to kind of fall into this when storytelling is at the forefront and it's not an episodic type of a show, sometimes you can see it's a little obvious when they go, it's clear in the writing and in some of the dialogue, okay, this is the plot of the episode. Because for this episode and only this episode, Sokka really kind of digs into himself and a little bit of self-deprecation and is like, I can't bend, I'm almost next to useless. And like, the rest of the show up to that point he never acted that way. He never really no one ever put him in that light, not even himself.
Actually, at the beginning of the show, he kind of dismisses Katara like, you're fucking magic.
Yeah. So I mean, because of course they grew and he grew to appreciate how everyone can do everything and how everyone's places in their team throughout the show, which of course is a really good aspect about him. But to start self-deprecating in that kind of instance, for that episode of the nostalgic critic thing, he labeled that episode as one of, again, the quote-unquote worst, because he does episodes of the show where it's like, oh, top 11 worst these or best these episodes of. So to call them the worst, it's not that they're inherently bad, it's that they're just the weaker episodes of the overall show because the show is so good. So he classified Sokka's Master as part of that instead of one of the better episodes or whatever. But that being, I think, a divisive aspect about Sokka's character being like, was he really useless? Or, why would he just start thinking about himself in this regard for this episode? Because this episode is like, okay, Sokka needs a new weapon. He needs to have something cool because the whole rest of the team can bend and he can't. And it felt very like they were hammering, not outright, but that was the undertone of the episode, is that's what they were hammering in. How do you feel about that?
I like that episode.
But do you think that that's something that... how do you feel about that?
I can understand.
Okay. So, but you don't feel that way?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Not really. Because...
I just wanted your thoughts on it, because I don't think that either, but I see how that all works together.
Because here's the thing. This is always kind of this is how I perceive it, is... Think about it. You're not wrong, right? Sokka's never made this argument, right? Up until this point. Mm-hmm. However... everyone else is continuing to grow and get these badass powers.
Yeah.
And he still has this fucking boomerang.
Boomerang.
Right? And so, at first, it probably wasn't a big, right? Katara literally had to, splash people backwards because she was so shitty at her waterbending at the beginning of the show, right?
Yeah.
Kind of hard to feel threatened by that. But while you're at the end of the game where you're literally with an avatar who's realizing most of the elements by this point in the show, Katara, who's becoming really good at waterbending, right? Has multiple different... I mean, she's got the healing now. She's getting extremely proficient. Toph, who's arguably the best earthbender in the fucking world.
Yeah.
Right? And the actual level of his combat prowess is very, very minorly improved. So I can say...
Yeah.
So...
He's been in that...
And so I can see how maybe at first he didn't need to.
Yeah.
But over time, he's like, this gap is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
He just feels like he's stagnant while everyone else is improving, essentially.
Yeah, right. That is one thing that the show does really well, I think, is that you don't have to be a bender to be powerful, right? Yeah. Ty Lee is a perfect example of that. She's like the anti-bender, right? She's...
Well, she gave birth to the fucking chi blockers by the time of Korra.
Blocking is ridiculous. Yeah. Mai can take out people with her knives really well, right? Suki is probably, besides Ty Lee, one of the most agile ones. The way she climbs the prison wall, and I was like, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah. I love that visual. Right? She's just like, bam, 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 and she's just going up there.
Badass. Right? And
I love Ty Lee for her like agile nature and all that.
Jet and Zuko are both fantastic swordsmen.
Yeah.
Right? Piandao, of course, is also a fantastic swordsman. You have, let's see, the
aforementioned archers that are never...
Why? Why?
That are never seen again.
It doesn't make any sense.
Never referenced again.
They put so much description into them.
Yeah.
Like, they named him. They told him how skillful they were.
You see how skillful they are.
You're like, damn, this is crazy. They captured the fucking Avatar.
Mm-hmm. With, like, no effort.
Yeah.
No effort whatsoever. Never
see him again.
Seen or heard from again.
Why? Right? And then, right? And it's Sokka, too, right? He doesn't have as much of a badass, a lot of the characters I just made. But but he doesn't need to be. Like I said, he's
not him.
He's the strategist. He's the reason why a lot of their plans go forward, right? That's still a skill. Yeah. Right? And so...
Do they really bring that up by the end of that episode or later on in the show at all anyway? The fact that he's a strategist and that's kind of... Not that that's where he belongs or that should be his sole role, but the fact that, like, that is as important to the team as them having their abilities.
They did a little bit, because he was trying to explain the invasion plan, and he was doing pretty bad just because he was nervous. Yeah, and then Aang is like, dude, like, that is not your moment of truth. Out here on the battlefield, right? And he shows his leadership out there, just like Aang said, like, you're going to do fine. And he did, right? He took over for his father when he needed to, and... Mm-hmm. Right? And the invasion, as far as they were concerned, was a success. The only reason it didn't work is because the Ozai wasn't there. They got all the way to the capital. Yeah, right? Yeah. If it wasn't for that, the invasion went smoothly. Sokka did a fantastic job. Yeah. Right? He did his job exactly how it needed to be done. Mm-hmm. And so you can't fault him. Yeah. No, I got to address it a little bit. Not like super directly, I would say, but there have badly been times where people are like, "No, Sokka, you're important to this team," and so that's another thing. Let's see. So we get to that. Speaking of invasion, we already kind of talked about it. His conversation with Ozai and how he's finally made that change is such a big moment.
Because most of the adults are captured, but once the kids leave, Zuko goes after them. Because that's going to start... That leads into him...
And then you get all those episodes with Zuko finally being on the team.
Yeah. Right. God, oh man, like... There's one... Speaking of divisive whatevers...
Well, actually, one of my least favorite episodes of the show is Nightmares and Daydreams. The episode right before the invasion where Aang's having a freaking...
panic attack.
Meltdown. Yeah.
He can't sleep and he has to always train.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. Well, it was silly. A little bit of it seemed almost fillery, but
it's too silly for me.
What you don't like?
You're not wearing pants.
What, you don't like when Appa and Momo fight?
Yeah, and then Guru Patik just floats in. Chakras, everybody likes chakras.
Oh, I love it. I love that episode.
Test. I didn't study for a test.
But that also speaks to the kid aspect of him and the fact that, okay, the way the show and the writers outside of the universe of the show in the real world relate that for the kids is, I think, being tasked with having the knowledge of what you need to do because something big is coming, whether it's a test, whether it's stressing over something that's coming, so it just invades every aspect of your fucking like life in that moment, and your anxiety levels are through the fucking roof. So like kids feel that. I felt that. I'm sure you felt that. A lot of people felt that when we were like Aang's age or teens, getting ready for college or whatever. So like a little bit of that was kind of, I think, the driving force behind that episode, and Aang just freaking the fuck out over having to fight him. But the fact of an universe, it makes sense because, again, a good theme throughout that portion of the season is the question that the characters even ask him in universe: how are you going to kill the Fire Lord? And Aang's like, I don't fucking know. Yeah. I can't kill him, but he's very fucking powerful, and I haven't mastered firebending yet.
He's pretty much ignored that problem up until the end, because he doesn't have any time. He kind of has to have a solution now. He can't push it off anymore.
Yeah,
exactly. He has to find a solution in the next few days, and then because
the world kind of depends on it.
Yeah,
like there's a lot riding on his decision.
Yeah,
and what he decides to do with this problem, essentially.
Yeah. And ultimately, he made the decision that he was going to kill the Fire Lord, and he kind of got a free pass with the Lion Turtle.
Yeah, we'll get to that later, trust me. We'll get to that in a minute. But, no, what was one of the other things I was going to point out? We deviated a little bit, and I lost my train of thought.
There's so much.
Yeah, let's backpedal a minute.
Okay. Backpedaling.
We had Black Sun, which we just talked about.
Correct.
Oh, that's right. I was starting to mention it. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is a divisive aspect about anything.
About being divisive.
Because sometimes when characters get like really upset at other characters, or they really focus on like some type of pointed anger for one reason or another, when Iroh does it to like Zuko or to Zhao or something, like we already mentioned, Iroh in particular had very pointed moments where he's really fucking like, direct with somebody. There's this pointed like anger, not for the sake of being angry, but because there's a point behind it. So when that happened and you see him yelling at someone, it makes sense. It's not drama for the sake of
impact.
And yes, and it's not drama for the sake of drama, and it's not like it's out of character for that character, but you see why they're that upset and that pointed.
Or that serious, yeah.
For Aang and everyone else to get so like, Zuko, get the fuck out of our faces, why are you coming, this trick over here isn't going to work, when he's trying to find the courage to be like, hey, you're going to need some help, you don't have much time, you need to learn firebending, I can help you. And that's him trying to be part of the team, and they're just like, get out of here, no, this is not, for a while there, because I understand, obviously, that they, with just how much history of everything they've been through.
Of course. And Katara, obviously, as we know, is the hardest time, because she did start to trust him in the prison below Ba Sing Se.
Yes.
Then just immediately backfires.
Yeah. So that one in particular makes a whole lot of sense. And especially how it ties in later, because in other episodes, Zuko just happened. That was the way of him gaining their trust, was that he went with them on certain missions here and there to do certain things, like Boiling Rock or whatever else, so then to go with Katara later, that made sense.
Yeah, it also makes sense. Toph's opinion is way less, because most of the Zuko interactions happen before she shows up in the team.
But that was the cool part too, because she wasn't really one to really judge. I mean, even when she came across Iroh way later in the show, earlier in the show,
well, they
didn't even know who they were. But the fact that she wasn't, but she could still like kind of read people's vibes through how she uses her her earthbending. So it's not like she like got any suspicious vibes from Iroh or anything like that. And she's not really one to judge anyway, right? So like the fact that she didn't really, and she was like questioning, so like, who is Zuko, like, and stuff like that. Only for Zuko to accidentally burn her later, because he was fucking surprised and he was like kind of scared and just kind of defending himself in the moment.
Yeah. If you're in the middle of the woods and you just get woken up randomly, I'd be a little freaked out.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, hang on, what's happening?
But I think in that moment, for that episode, 'cause that's where all that transpires, I don't know if it was uncharacteristic for them to get that fucking upset with him and to just be like, get the fuck out of here. Like, do you think that was a little too intense for them? Or, I mean, because even Aang didn't so much as like, because we have those moments like in the storm where they share that look, or
Aang,
like...
Yeah, because Aang didn't like Zuko, but his decision was more based on the opinions of the rest of the group, which primarily Sokka and Katara, of course.
And of course they're going to be like...
No. You know.
Yeah, but because Aang doesn't even... We don't even get so much as a moment...
Yeah, because Sokka and Katara were the ones that were actually mad.
Oh, of course, yeah. And I understand it, too. But even with Aang, it's like... Okay, maybe not, I wouldn't call it uncharacteristic, but not even for so much as a moment does he even stop to, like, maybe consider, until later, when, you know, it's now time for them to have to kind of reconsider, like, to consider him, you know, and that's when, and that leads into those episodes of them going off with him on different little missions here and there and whatever.
Aang's to the Sun Warrior tribe, meeting the Great Masters who thought they were extinct.
The Dragons.
The Dragons.
Fucking awesome episode.
Right, of course, the Southern Raiders with Katara. I know who killed your mother.
Dude. Fucking intense shit.
Katara.
Bloodbending.
Fucking bloodbends that poor guy. Who had nothing to do with it.
Zuko was like, fuck.
Note to self, do not
piss her off.
Katara. And then poor Toph just wants her adventure with Zuko and never gets it.
Yeah.
I want my life. Everyone else got their life changing, right? Because Sokka went to the Boiling Rock, which is I really like those 2 episodes.
That was a good 2-parter.
I could find out what happened to Suki, and she's there, and they save her dad, and Azula's betrayal from Ty Lee and May is a huge scene.
That was a big one.
I remember when Ty Lee chi blocked Azula, I was like, holy fuck!
Yeah. Yeah, that was
like, oh my
and that was the start of her fucking mental breakdown, because she had that was the cool thing about Azula. We start to really dive into Azula's kind of like psyche, because for as much as we learned throughout season 2 and all that stuff, and just seeing her interactions with Zuko, both present day and in flashbacks and stuff, seeing her upbringing, but getting to dive into like what she wanted was just love from her mother, and even her mother could see like they're kind of fucked up. Yeah. Like no one gave her that chance and gave her that love, and she did kind of want it.
Yeah.
No one gave it to her.
And you see from her friends, right? She had her friends, and of course her quote-unquote friends, right?
She kind of even like bullied them into joining her. You see what she did to Ty Lee.
Yeah. She
like forced her essentially to join her. Yeah, and so in kind of a way.
And you can see the type of emotion that it had on her once they were gone, right?
Yeah.
Although it was a horribly toxic relationship, that support she wanted, like, I think because of how bad of a emotional breakdown everything had on her, I think she actually thought of them as friends. She just didn't know how to properly display
them. Yeah.
Correct. Right? So like they didn't think of her because they said they really only joined her because they were afraid of her.
Yeah.
Right? But I think Azula was trying to do that, but because she didn't understand how to make a proper friend.
Yeah.
Right?
The beach episode, for as comedic as they portray it, is a very...
right? You see, because Mai and Ty Lee,
clear.
They did not need Azula.
Yeah.
Right? They broke up with her and they're fine, but Azula lost her fucking marbles. Right? They actually were very important to her mental health, and when they were gone, she just freaking... She fell apart.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of the end for her.
I was gonna say those exact words. Yeah. Because she starts seeing visions of her mom in the mirror.
Yeah.
And
I think even she... Not
trying
much,
to keep up her appearance, but failing,
and
she just cuts her bangs off and doesn't even care.
No, yeah. I think she did... There's a few scenes where I think... There's one particular scene, because I was never sure how she felt about her brother, but I think there was just a little bit. Because usually when she was trying... You know, she's always manipulative and using and clearly selfish, right?
Yeah.
Right? But like, what do I have from telling the Fire Lord that you're the one who killed the Avatar, unless he was still alive, right? Because it's like all of a sudden all that becomes shame and foolishness, right? Not trying to help Zuko, right? But there's one particular scene where she does actually help Zuko for the sake of helping him. It's very small. And it's not actually helping. It's more of like, hey, be careful, dum-dum. Which is, remember, he was going to go secretly visit Iroh in prison. and he gets seen by that guard, and he's like, no one is gonna fucking find out about this, right? And later, Azula goes, so I hear you've been going to visit your uncle at the prison, and he goes, the fucking guard told you, didn't he? She's like, no, you did just now.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, what do you want? She's like, for once, nothing. I'm actually looking out for you. If they find out you're talking to your uncle, they're going to think you're plotting something. Be careful. Right? And that's the one and only time she actually said something that I can recall from the show, simply for the sake of helping, like, just giving
and who really knows even why, like, that transpired, especially, too, because at that point, there was, like, the whole breaking ties when he was going to go and help Aang anyway. And, like, yeah, it's just crazy how that all transpired.
Yeah. She's a very interesting mental state. Yeah. Very interesting character, for sure. Which we just see transpire in the finale. Where, because, of course, that final Agni Kai, which is a beautiful fight.
Yeah.
The way they animated it, the music,
the sound design, the fact that the sound's still there, but it's muted.
Yeah, it's epic, but it's also sad and, like, tragic, right? Because it's finally the siblings are coming together. They polar opposites, right? You have the Fire Lord and the Avatar side of the family clashing, the blue and the red.
Yes.
Zuko, who's very collected now, and because Zula, although crazy, was the very confident one, where Zuko was always the angsty, like, what the fuck? I'm trying to figure myself out.
Yeah.
And by the end of the show, it had flip-flopped. Zuko is the stoic, content, like, I know exactly what I want, I know what's right.
I know who I am.
And Azula is absolutely losing her fucking mind, right? Complete other way around. And seeing that play out, and Zuko would have won had Katara not just fucking stepped into the side. Like, oh, it's only the fucking comet, and Azula, who's already one of the most powerful benders, let me just stand over here within lightning shot. Thanks. I'm not even mad that Katara is the one who ultimately beat the fight, because really, the moment that Azula shot at Katara, the Agni Kai was over, and Zuko won by default because she cheated.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm less mad at the fact that Zuko didn't win his fight with Azula than I am that Katara was just fucking in the wrong place. Why were you there? Why were you there? Why were you there? Everything was fine. You agreed with Zuko. You would stay out of it from the beginning, and you fucking didn't listen.
Oh my god.
Because I know that, because that is a decisive point. They were saying in the video we're watching is that they don't like that.
Yeah.
Katara is the one who
ultimately subdued her.
Like, that in itself, it doesn't bother me. It's just the fact that Katara put herself in such a shitty spot. It's really what annoys me.
The thing too, that thing you brought up after we were watching that video about how did Azula deserve redemption at some point after the fact?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's Zuko's thing. The fact that was what we spent the whole show building up for him. Because for as much as we built up for Azula, she didn't really rise to, like, real prominence until that season. And her arc all culminates because she just loses her goddamn mind by the end. And I think... And she's the tragic character that we deserve... I think deserves to stay tragic. Yeah. For the fact that she did it to herself and she had multiple outs, she could have had... Well, see, there's two sides to that, because she probably had multiple outs, but the fact that her upbringing was mainly by her father, kind of denounced most other things, didn't really care about Zuko a whole lot, didn't really care about Iroh, just wanted love from her mother, never got it, so that's already one tragic part of her. But for it to all culminate, it's just her losing her goddamn mind chained to the ground like that was, like, I think the cherry on top, because she just fucking loses it.
Like, the voice acting throughout the whole show is really good, but I have to give...
That was Great Delisle. Great Griffin.
Yeah, she does such a fucking good job with Azula. Like, in my opinion, Azula is the best voice acted character in the show. Mm-hmm. In my opinion. Iroh is...
Makes sense.
Yeah. Iroh is very good, and Zuko is very good as well. But I think if I had to pick a single character for the best voice acted, it would be Azula. I think she gets her, like, her mannerisms and the cracks in the voice and the mentality. And it's perfect. She's so good.
Just her crying at the end. It's just so, like, my God. It's like watching a fucking rabid dog be put down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just one of those images.
It's not just like a crying scene in cartoon. Like, you feel it.
The animation, too, and everything. She's just fucking bawling.
Yeah.
Because everything's just... She's done. Everything is over. Yeah. She lost. And she can't handle it.
No.
It's fucking unreal to watch.
Yeah, it's... They did such a fantastic job with that scene.
Yeah. And the fact that because she's chained down, she can't move her arms, she's just, like, bellowing out fire.
And she's flailing in
just
the ground.
last-minute attempts at, like, anything.
Yeah.
It's so, like... Fuck.
Getting out all that emotion.
Yeah.
Because even before this, she starts hyperventilating.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's so good.
It's insane, man.
Actually, I know you haven't read the comics, but there's a scene to show how crazy Azula is. One of the very first times you see Azula again in the comics, she's literally... Her hair is still completely fucked. And she's literally in one of those crazy people straitjackets.
Oh, straitjacket. I was going to say, like, I hope she has, like, Hannibal Lecter with the muzzle and everything. Yeah. Which she needs because fucking firebending, but whatever.
Yep.
My God.
Yeah, she's in a complete wrap. Just, like, totally fucked. And you're like, oh my God, Azula. Holy shit, you're fucking gone.
Yeah. I don't know. Having redemption for her, it just doesn't make sense. Not everyone needs to be converted to, like, that, you know, like, I see the error in my ways. That was exactly her character. She never saw the error of her ways. Even if she did, she didn't care. Like,
Yep.
That was the whole point of her character.
So to wrap up, Zuko, of course, right? Becomes a Fire Lord, gets back with May, talks to Dad.
Because everyone loves that ship.
Figure out,
I first wanted to be with him to be with Jin, as does Miharu, but, you know, it's whatever.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we know there's plenty of Zutara shippers out there. I personally don't really care. I'd be fine with any of them, honestly.
Yeah.
None of them really bother me. But yeah. And then, of course, you get that scene where is my mother with his father in the jail, and it's the way.
Hey, no spoilers. I still don't know any of that. Yeah. But so, they explain it, yeah?
The comics do explain that, and that's all I will say, because there's 5 or 6 comics now, and one of them is pretty much entirely dedicated to that, right? And so that's all I'll say, because it's personally probably my favorite one out of the entire thing, that alone, like, even if you decide you don't want to read all the comics, that's the second one, so you should at least read the first 2 to get to that far. But anyway, this is the only answer that doesn't get answered in the actual show. Pretty much everything else is answered. That's like the one only cliffhanger that gets left at the end, really.
So I know it burned everyone's ass. So no, I was like, why would you even bring it up if you're not going to answer it?
I think Korra started before the comic started, so that's why there's that scene at the
beginning.
What happened to Zuko's mom? Well, it's this incredible tale. And then I was like, no, I want to know the question.
Stop!
That's illegal. I need to know. So now to wrap back
that
to
4-parter.
Aang's side, we've already kind of tied into it. The lion turtles.
Mentioned it a brief minute. Yeah. We were talking about it before we started recording. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna hold my thoughts until we get to that point in the podcast. So
we're here now.
Yeah.
So essentially, as we know, the lion turtles, in a lot of people's eyes, are taken kind of as a Deus Ex Machina, where. Yeah, because like I said, in the previous scene, he's trying to talk to the other avatars, and he finally comes to the conclusion, all right, I'm going to kill the Fire Lord. I'm not fucking happy about it, but ultimately, it's what I got to do. End of the story, right? And so a lot of people don't like the fact that Mr. Lion Turtle came out and gave him energy bending, like, right before the final fight.
I was going to say, it's like the Lion Turtles are Aang's ultimate solution to how he's going to beat Ozai. Problem, quote unquote, is that was a scene long, and that was it.
There's a scene long. They don't explain the lion turtle. He's just like, a lion turtle, maybe you can help me. And all of a sudden it's talking to Aang. You're like,
okay, I can help you.
And he has the most majestic voice in the world. Like, okay. Because up until then, the lion turtles are only mentioned in the show one singular time, and it very briefly and in a completely, like, undeveloping way.
Yeah, and kind of like a pass-by statement.
In the library, they're in there, and they're like,
ooh, lion turtles.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, I don't remember exactly what was said, but basically what happened.
I feel like how we were talking about earlier.
No major substance.
I feel like how we were talking about earlier, how maybe they didn't know how far they were going to take things and take the story. The fact that, like I said, certain things were kind of planted, whether how minuscule it seemed like a pass-by statement or whatever, or someone in the background or just off to the side like Azula before being properly introduced. Certain things were planted, came to fruition later, whether it's as like not a brick joke, because it's not really comedic, but as something that pays off later, or something or someone like Azula who's going to be one of the driving forces for the rest of the show. The Lion Turtle was not one of those that really landed the mark as prominently as I think they were going to probably want it to be. But I still like how there is some of it still there. The fact that it was referenced for a bit kind of comes to a head by the end of the show.
The other problem that I have, too, that I hear people less explain this one. Most people tend to point the Lion Turtle from... but they make this entire deal with Guru Patik that his stuff's locked, and then all of a sudden, all he had to do was smash his back into a fucking rock, and all of a sudden his avatar power is back. I remember, so that kind of felt to me a little bit. I was like, "That's all it took, really? You just had to smash his back in again?" That's unlocked. Fuck the chakras. But
first off, the fight is fucking awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pointing out these little nitpicky things, but ultimately I love the conclusion.
Yeah,
like I said, the fight. Yeah, the fight.
It feels huge.
One of my favorite moves, bending moves, happens in that fight with Ozai, where he takes all those stones, condenses them, and then he shoots them like a fucking minigun. Yeah, like.
Yeah.
And then,
that was cool.
And then you get the overhead shot, and the entire like landscape is just fucking. I was like, dude.
The one small moment. Go ahead.
Ozai would have, like, just one pebble. It was like bullets. Like,
yeah.
Dead.
It was a very small moment, and it's just this little. But again, the fact of how they paint a lot of the characters, Bang in particular too, like he can be so like. He can be badass when he needs to be, especially when he's in the Avatar state. So that one moment when he's shielding himself. And he's like, you can't hide in there forever. And he's like really hammering down on him. And then he uses the state and just rises up so quickly and just grabs him by the fucking beard.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, fuck. And he just starts going ham on him. Like, fuck, man. Speaking of ham, getting Mark Hamill to voice Ozai. Fucking spot on. Again, voice acting. He's good.
Yeah. He did a really good job with. I've actually always, like, Mark Hamill's actual, like, life acting. so right, but I think his true talent has always been his voice acting. Yeah, like I know everyone knows him for Star Wars, right? But I know
he's the Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, but I have personally never been a huge fan of his actual life acting. I think he does a fantastic job with his voice acting. Like the Joker is another one that he does.
Yeah,
right? He does a fantastic job with Ozai. Yeah, Ozai I think is another character that's pretty well voice acted. Yeah, he did
Skeletor recently in one of the new He-Man shows. He's really good there too.
I said I really like Hamill for his voice acting mostly. No, he was a really good pick. Actually, I saw a little introduction. What was it like they interviewed him for his part in as Ozai, and he even said he's like, because I think it was after it like kind of had this massive resurgence because of Netflix, right? Because it got put on there. It was like the top show for like a month or two.
When it went up on Netflix is when I had my grandma and Victor watch the show with me, and we binged the whole thing all the way through because they only saw episodes when I was watching it. One of the times,
I know your grandma popped in sometimes and saw some of the episodes when we
here
were
and there.
watching.
Yeah, Vic too. He would just kind of pop in, but I was like, "Hey, do you guys want to watch the show? Because it's fucking good." And we sat there. That we made it like a little thing for like
and they really liked it too. Huh?
Oh, they
liked
it. And Cora as well. We watched that too.
Right at the beginning, we were explaining like it's good for all ages. His
yeah.
Grandmama, right, right. So like,
It's been a while. She's not gonna remember the characters and stuff, but she'll remember certain moments, and she'll probably be like, "Yeah, that was cool."
Yeah, it's just good show, man. Good fucking show.
But was there anything else we left out?
Well, I'm sure. I mean, we skipped like half the episodes in the show.
Well, because that was... Well, I wanted to touch a little bit more, because I don't think I finished my full thoughts on taking Ozai's bending away being the solution. He's not going to kill him. We already knew he wasn't... There was a part everyone must have thought where it's like, well, he's not going to kill him.
That solution,
but what's he going to do?
Yeah, taking his bending away was fine. I didn't actually have a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with the solution. It totally makes sense for Aang's character.
How he got there.
Just that free pass that he got handed at the end is really...
Well, because here's what I think. I think if they talked more about the Lion Turtles and they really... Because that obviously that wasn't in the showrunner's mind. That wasn't in the writer's, vision for how everything was going to go down. They had to find a way to kind of, introduce that aspect, but it must have been late into the production of that season or something, because it didn't really have... There was no mention of it until that moment.
A thing that makes me wonder is because same thing, like they couldn't show... Because Korra actually got de-aired a few times because of its dark scenes from Nickelodeon. So
it got dicked around executively as well too.
Yes,
on top of that.
But they couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't air it on TV a few times. Nickelodeon didn't want it up there because the scene where she was getting her oxygen ripped out of her lungs is an example of it.
Or when Korra got poisoned.
So like that's why like Yue was allowed to die on screen because her death was not violent.
Mm-hmm.
She willingly sacrificed herself. She turned into a beautiful spirit, right? Nickelodeon's like, okay, that's acceptable.
Some fictional cartoon shit.
That's acceptable.
Yeah.
Right? They couldn't do that with Jet because he died violently, which is why they had to do it so unclear, right? Because it was required for Nickelodeon. And so I think they were probably at the end like, we got this climax and we're trying to figure out what the fuck. They were probably... I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nickelodeon was trying to decide themselves what they wanted to do. And so they were kind of left like, we want him to kill the Fire Lord, but here's our solution if you decide not to okay it. Right.
But again, it does still go against how Aang was raised. He's a monk. He was taught to be a pacifist, find other ways to, get around stuff like that. And the only time, and again, it's not vague, but like it's so not off screen, but like almost out of frame, out in the background. The one time he kills something, being that was it the wasp or whatever, the bug, like he does not kill. There was only that one instance, and it wasn't even a human. It wasn't anything,
Yeah.
And it made sense in the context of where he was emotionally.
And it did attack him first.
Yes. So all things considered,
it did try to take Momo.
Yeah, all things considered, it just made sense.
He still did overkill, but he didn't just do it to do it.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Still another layer of it.
Yeah, like one other Yu-Gi-Oh comparison I can make is when Yami goes overkill on Weevil. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but anyone who's listening will probably. When Yami goes overkill on Weevil in season 4, because Yugi was lost around that time, he got his soul taken by the seal of Orichalcos. This makes no sense to you, I'm sorry. But it's something kind of similar. You never see revenge like that, especially from the hero, the protagonist. So like for Aang to do that, but point being though, he doesn't kill. So the fact that, and that's what they keep telling him, you're gonna have to kill the Fire Lord, and for Aang to be like, there has to be another way. If only we spent more time and kind of already had that knowledge cemented the way we did with other characters or aspects of the show that came back later, for the Lion Turtles to kind of be there, to be a part of the world, maybe even a one-off, offhanded thing that they read or something, being like, oh, I guess they went extinct or something a long time ago or whatever,
There was an episode dedicated to trying to find him, learn about him or something like that.
Yeah, or something.
At least we get something. Yeah, because a lot of people, like, they like it because they feel like that it's more fitting for Aang. I agree and don't agree with that at the same time, because he had that conversation with Yang Chen, who agrees with Aang. He's like, yes, the Airbenders taught you well, right? That is exactly the teachings that I would expect from you. However, you are not just an Airbender. You are an Avatar, right? and you can't just think about your own religious ideals. So she has one of the most powerful lines, in my opinion. It says, selfless duty calls you to sacrifice your own spiritual needs, right? And do whatever it takes to save the world.
Yeah.
You know, and again, Aang made that decision, like, right,
because that was a cool moment too.
Right.
The fact that he was on the land turtle, but not knowing that that's what it was, just a moving island, and trying to speak to the other avatars, but he wanted the answer that he wanted to hear, and they weren't giving him that. Yeah. They were trying. That was the cool part too, is that they were trying to tell him that either there could be another way that you can. That you got to come up with, or it's gonna have to come down to.
Aang ultimately, you're right, because Aang ultimately called upon them not to get the answer, but to get the answer that he wanted. Yeah. He wanted assurance of his own thing, and he was not getting it, and then that's why he finally accepted it when an Airbender avatar was like, "You're right in every other situation except this one."
Yeah.
In this particular circumstance, you are the avatar. It sucks. It is what it is, right? Like you're gonna have to sacrifice a little bit of yourself, unfortunately.
But the thing, too, that I like, because a lot of what we've talked about lends to the theme, and I'm sure they've had to have said it, and it's got to be a word that's popped up quite a lot on the show, is it all lends to the theme of balance. And the fact that it's energy bending and it's taking one's bending away, like, that it makes total sense. I am super fine, and I'm sure everyone is relatively super fine with that choice in the end. That's how Ozai goes down. Like that's actually almost worse than, fate worse probably than death in his eyes or something, because his power and all his supremacy, no more,
Nope.
So like,
because he himself is no longer a threat.
Yeah. So like, I understand it. I just wish that they toyed with the idea more, and I know why they probably didn't. There could be two reasons why they didn't really bring up energy bending, or if we have these abilities, could it be possible that they can be taken away or something? One, because they probably didn't think about it, but two, because even if they did and they try to introduce it in universe, that could just lead to them being like, hey, why don't we just take his abilities away? And then there's his answer, So it kind of defeats the purpose of his journey within that.
They already had chi blocking. They could have.
Yeah, exactly.
They could have even dropped it entirely, and there's just kind of like an element like blood bending, right? An evolution of that.
Could you imagine how crucial Ty Lee could have been to that fight if like
in Korra, that's exactly what they did. Like blood bending can do it too.
Yeah.
Right? Or there's chi blocking, which you could have just made some kind of element where that gets elevated, and you can figure out a way to do it permanently or something. I mean, there's a couple different routes they could have taken it.
Could you imagine, though?
I don't know how they would have done it. I'm just saying there are.
Yeah. Aang brings Ty Lee into battle. And she chi blocks from behind.
Delete that, Fire Lord.
she chi blocks from behind. Gives them the advantage.
But you could even say, the Avatar... like, everyone else can chi block, but only the Avatar can do it permanently.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just fucking I'm making shit up. Maybe it's stupid. I don't know. But,
because even didn't Aang try to do that to what's his fucking,
which is essentially what he did.
What's his fucking face in Korra? In that flashback, he was gonna do the same thing to so and so Locke, because everyone has fucking Locke at the end of their name in the first season of Korra.
Tarlok?
I think so, in the flashback. So he was gonna do it to someone or other, and then
Yakone?
I probably don't.
Are you talking about the? You're talking about the flashback with Aang, and he was that gang leader in the court.
Yes.
Yes, that's Yakone.
Okay. It's been a while since I watched Korra. He was going to do the same thing to him, I think, and it's just in direct response to the fact that, hey, we saw him do it in Avatar, so he could just do it now. But then, something or other happens, and they get the upper hand.
Actually, bringing in Korra a little bit, of course, I was just telling him, because we get Avatar's Wan's explanation of the lion turtle, which when you take back, adds a lot more perspective to that scene, where before it came out, you're like, what the fuck?
One, and the backstory of, that episode could have been probably pretty good for what it's worth for Avatar if they thought that far ahead. But which of course they didn't, and it would have been a weird, that if you took that episode out of Korra and plopped it into Avatar somewhere randomly, and it's Aang having those visions instead of Korra, like, it just kind of wouldn't make sense with the way they wrote it for Korra. But if that was something that they thought of, because it involves the lion turtles...
maybe not. He was already trying to talk to the Avatars. If he just went far enough back, talked to Wan, he would have discovered more about the lion turtles.
Which could have led to him being like, hey, I'm fucking on one.
Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's why I got drawn here. And now I have the right. I think it could have maybe been done well, but anyway. But regardless, that's not what happened.
Because I feel like that episode with Juan and all that was almost a response to how they had to feel the need to be able to finally explain it because they didn't in Avatar.
Yeah.
So it kind of lends more credence to them as an entity.
I was telling Marcelo, and it sounded like he wasn't aware of this, but a lot of people, not like a good chunk of people, I would say, are actually not a huge fan of those episodes because they remember in Avatar: Last Airbender, they explain at the Water Tribe they say the moon taught us how to push and pull the water.
Yes.
Toph explains that the Badger Moles are the original teachers of earthbending, right? And they have that whole story before Toph, the Cave of Two Lovers. They're explaining how they learned how to earthbend from the Badger Moles while they were in there. Mm-hmm. At least I think that's how it was. That's how it went. And then, Zuko explains how the original firebenders were dragons. And, of course, Aang explains that the air bison is that for the airbenders.
Yeah.
And so they remember, they are the original teachers. And so when they heard that the lion turtles were the ones that gave humanity the ability to bend, they're like, no, that conflicts. That doesn't make any sense, right? You just retcon the old material. I do not see it that way. The way I see it is... right? Humanity did not have the ability to bend at all, period. The lion turtles gave them the ability to do so, but as you see, look what happened. The other firebenders, because remember he tricked them to go out and go firebending with the other guys who were out into the spirit wilds, is what they called it, to get resources or food or hunt or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they're throwing basic fireballs around, but nothing fancy. Right? Later, when Juan gets kicked out, what does he learn from? All of these spirits, right? And he ends up being way better at firebending really quickly than any of the other humans ever were.
Yeah.
Right? And so he was taught by the spirit world how to properly handle the elements.
Yeah.
Right? The moon, the Badgermoles, the dragons, the air bison, those are those things in the world that helped them teach them how to actually bend properly, how to hone their ability, how it connects them to the world and around them, right? And its influence in the world, right? And so it still had that purpose. They're not lying. It was the people that taught them how to bend, just not how to bend at all, just how to bend properly and its importance and how it connects everything, right? And that's the way I see it. And
that does make sense, yeah. Because I took it to be like, oh, well, because that was so early in the history and timeline of the franchise, of the series, in universe, that, that was history right there. That is how that happened with the Lion Turtles and stuff, and that's how they wrote it to be. Because a lot of people said that it's stories that, because we do see Badger Moles and, with the moon and everything. It's funny how the sun doesn't come up too often since, with the eclipse, or as they creatively call it, Black Sun. That sounds awesome. That, certain things of how the world and everything, it's all about balance and how everything works. Some things can power you up. Some things can weaken you, in that sense.
Actually, there are some books that show, Avatar books are like little snippets. They actually explain that to a much minor degree than the things we just explained, but each element actually has a season and are slightly stronger and weaker depending on the season, right? Winter, of course, is water.
Yeah,
right? I don't remember what the other three were. I think fire was summer.
That makes sense. Wind
or earth was spring or fall, and I don't remember which one was which, right? Mm-hmm. But again, significantly
but that's
lesser,
cool,
right? But it is true.
Just how that leads to how I was saying throughout most of the podcast of how the world building is fucking immaculate. Nothing is really left out, and if it's not directly in the show, then it's covered in other material or whatever. But it's there, and I think my interpretation for the moles and the moon and the bison, we do see them, and we see how the bison fly. We see how the moles can help tunnel stuff underground for both in Avatar and in Korra. But those could be more of I interpreted them originally as religious beliefs or mythological stories passed down that we still do see again in the show in that present time for those timelines. still transpire, but like they probably came from like a legend or some stories or something, even if they're still true to that day. But with one and the Lion Turtles, that was all part of history. That happened. So I don't think it's a retcon.
Yeah. I don't see it as a retcon either.
Yeah. But how you say it too makes a lot more sense than my take, where once the dragons came in, because we don't know when they did, we were told that they did, and we see that we see them in Avatar, and you know, Zuko has one in Korra, so like, you know, your take I think is a little bit better than mine, and it makes sense. So.
But yeah, you're right. Like the way the world building in the show is just so good because everything's so consistent. And nothing feels randomly placed in. Everything totally makes sense of the world. Even that, like I said, even the small details, like they include so many little details that are like totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
But are that just really help fill out the scene.
And they don't need to.
Yeah.
But sometimes it comes in as a plot device, or it comes in because the characters remember, hey, I can do this thing, and then they'll go for it, and it's like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Because
there hasn't been a show that I've seen, a cartoon show that I've seen
that handles it that well and that seriously.
That fucking immaculately. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's done.
That's what makes the show so good.
That's one of the things. Exactly. It's one of the things that makes the show so good, right? Because ultimately, like, don't get me wrong, the plot is good, but if you really bear it down, it's ultimate good versus ultimate evil. It's pretty traditional in that route. Of course, we still have the big redemption arc with Zuko, which is really good, right? But with Aang's side, big bad, big good. Make sure you kill him or get rid of it by the end of the show.
Yeah.
Right. Essentially, is what it is. Right. It's the way that it's presented that makes it so amazing. Right.
And it's very simplistic too, because like I said, as we've been talking, you know, the paths they've taken to get there, like physically, how they're traveling from place to place. That was the part I liked about it the most. How that was one of the grounds for setting up who our heroes are as characters, how they interact with other people, how they see other people. The stuff they get into with other people, whether it's, you know, they meet up with old friends of their parents, friends of whoever, allies, how they make enemies with random people, how someone might be good for a minute but then have ulterior motives or just might be bad in general or whatever.
Like those middle characters, like Jet is an example of that. Like, he's not a bad guy, but he has some bad tendencies, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of like in the middle, you know, you can see him swing either way.
Because I mean, I suppose people consider Jet to be like a weaker character because he's just kind of there sometimes, and because of how they kind of introduced him and stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely not as big of a character, right? He had the potential to be built on more, they just didn't. And to be fair, I mean, they only had so much screen time, right?
Yeah.
You have to pick someone to drop the ball on a little bit. You can't. No show's gonna be able to develop everyone over everything.
There's a reason someone like Suki joined the group properly. And, like, not Jet, you know? Like, Suki got so much more time, and she's with Sokka and stuff like that. And even that was cool, seeing the fact that, you know, again, lending to Sokka's character, how he started off borderline sexist, full of himself a little bit, kind of a man's man, you know, trying to be, you know... and it's because he needed to be. You can't fault him, because that's how they grew up. When that raid happened, he had to grow up real fast, and... You know, he had to look out for Katara and stuff like that, so, like, that's just kind of why he is how he is when he starts. But by the end, his leadership skills are, you know, way more defined, and just things like that.
Much more worldly view, not nearly as kind of, like, direct, like, these are how things are, which is kind of how he was, especially for the first half of season 1. He was, you know, like, I'm the leader because I'm the guy.
Yeah.
All right.
He was a little stubborn, a little kind of like, let's just get this show on the road, stop messing with the penguins, stop messing with whatever. Trying to train the little kids in those first few episodes.
Which, because, of course, he has his silly moments, and he is a comedic relief. But overall, generally, he's one of the more serious characters of the gang.
Yeah.
Katara being probably the other one. Aang, of course, is young, and so he's much more playful, right? And Toph, although hard-headed and stubborn, also likes to fuck around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can see that in their character, where Katara and Sokka, however silly, because they're still teenagers, But they're a little older, and they have, they can kind of keep a little bit better balance of kind of that, And then of course there's Zuko, who is even older and angsty, and who doesn't know how to take anything but seriously.
Yeah.
Dude never has fun. As he says, I'm never happy.
But it's funny trying to see him try at the same time. Like, having those conversations with himself or with, like, the toad or whatever, trying to...
And he is capable. Every now and then you'll catch him smiling at
rehearse.
something.
Yeah. And that was something we kind of glossed over a little bit, too. One of those moments... He had different moments that acted as transitional periods for his morality. Getting sick and going through that fucking fever dream was, like, the craziest shit. And waking up being like, hello, uncle. And he's all fucking smiling and shit and doing chores and whatever. But then still not understanding why he's feeling that way. Like, it's so pinpoint.
Did you know Zuko only laughs once in the entire show?
Does he? Who's he with?
Uncle. It was in season 1. It was the pirate episode where the pirate's ship goes over the waterfall and he goes, ha ha! And then his boat goes up. He's like, fuck!
Oh, I do remember that.
Wow. This is the only time in the entire show that he laughs.
It's funny.
He's laughing at someone else's misery.
Hey, at least he's laughing. He's having fun. The one thing, though, that I wanted to put a cap on for soccer real quick, because I didn't finish the thought. Ending up with Suki specifically, I think it was cool because, like I said, he was borderline sexist when he first started. All that stuff. A little full of himself, a little kind of a man's man, whatever, due to the circumstances of how he grew up. But the fact of seeing how he was Yue, right? I don't want to mispronounce the name.
Yue is the northern Wi-Fi princess.
I know. I don't want to mispronounce the name. But being attracted to her and stuff and having like a sort of kind of relationship right there for a hot minute. Yeah. They kissed maybe like once or twice. And just because he saw her and was like, you're pretty. And then she sacrificed herself and all that. And even before that all happened, meeting up with Suki and yeah, how you said, like, you kind of just laughed at their practices and stuff. And like, well, that's some girl stuff and whatever. But then later, even in that episode, learning like, can you teach me that and stuff. So it was kind of like not the, best meeting with her. Because he didn't express this like, well, you're pretty or whatever, like the way he did with Yue. But like, but
he's just, where are the men that captured us?
But Jesus,
there were no men. We captured you. And he's just like,
but it was like an unexpected dynamic, but that felt really natural, and then eventually it just, because she's cool and they just had this like more natural attraction than just, you're pretty, I want to kiss.
Talking about little details, one that I caught after watching the show a couple times is in episode 1 of season 2, when Iroh and Zuko they cut their hair.
Oh yes.
And you see the knife. That's the knife he uses to cut his hair is the knife he gave to the kid in Zuko alone.
Oh, nice. That's interesting.
You see the knife then before you ever see, just little things like that.
Did he get that? Where did he get that knife from? Did we see that?
Uncle gave it to him.
That was okay. That was the gift.
Yeah, that was a gift he got from in the cutscene, because you see
the cutscene.
Cutscene.
The flashback.
Flashback.
That's a video game. I mean, we have some.
Yeah, she was saying that. I think his mom was reading a letter from Uncle saying like it was from one of the generals that surrendered at the battle or something like that.
Huh.
And then he gave it to Zuko as a gift. And he held on to it.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Just a little tiny detail and it got brought up 3 fucking times.
That was a cool thing too. Seeing him have just his little thing of hair.
Seeing his hair change throughout the show.
It's so cool.
From his ponytail to like short nothing hair, and then he got that total emo.
Got a little bit of a do, and then that this whole like, oh, I'm just gonna burst out of my face. Everyone, it's obviously no secret. Everyone draws him like that.
Yeah.
But
that scene where he's with Jin, Uncle does his hair, and it looks so fucking doopy.
I love in Ember Island when the actor playing him just has his whole fucking wig and it's all like blowing in the breeze. Every little thing they bring back around to either make fun of it because they know it's like kind of silly or kind of whatever, but like it's just how they pull it off. Even the self-awareness of it does not feel like they're self-deprecating in their own show because, hey, yeah, it was bad, whatever. But like they have fun with it. They know what the fans latch onto, and they'll like kind of just feed you a little bit of that kind of, you know, it's like fan service, but it's just done so well. It's so good.
All right. It has been over 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We can continue to talk about this, I'm sure. However, it's probably time it ends.
Before it does, though, I had one more thing we wanted to talk about.
Okay.
It might not be a long conversation. Hope not anyway. What do you think they'll go with Avatar Studios?
Bro! How did I forget to bring that up?
We just got confirmation not too long ago, so I'm not going to... This won't be too dated. The news is already out there. It's still recent news, though, at the time of this recording, that the Kyoshi movie got switched out for a movie about the Avatar cast in their later years.
Yeah.
But before Korra.
Yeah, because originally it was going to be Kyoshi, Zuko, and Korra.
Mm-hmm. And the Zuko and Korra ones are still on, as far as I'm aware.
So did they actually just switch it out with Kyoshi, or is Kyoshi just getting put on the back burner?
I'm actually not sure. I haven't heard if they're going to can that idea, or if that idea was just a placeholder until they came up with this, or decided this was the route that we were going to go. I just know that instead of a Kyoshi movie, they're doing an older Avatar game story.
Well, there's that. Yeah, because we know, because like I already kind of briefly brought up, right? There was a huge resurgence of when the show got brought up on Nickelodeon. Mm-hmm. I mean, on Netflix. Uh-huh. And that's why Netflix started making their live-action show, which it could be wrong, but I think I heard that season 1 finally wrapped up shooting.
Okay.
Right? I have a hard time believing it could possibly be as bad or worse than the movie.
The Shyamalan film.
Okay. I just have a really hard time believing it could be possibly that bad. Especially because the one thing, yes, it is definitely scary because the original creators left. However, that's why we have Avatar Studios now, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Right? So
I wonder, like, what happened, if there was any, like, clashing ideas or mindsets on the project, and that's what forced... I don't know if they were forced to leave, or they felt they needed to leave.
I don't remember what they said, but they both gave statements of without giving too much, right? Because they can only do so much about the business side of Netflix, right?
Yeah.
But it sounded like it was for creative reasons, which is not good news.
Also, because you told me what... More stuff did come out about the live-action show,
Again,
and you told me that...
I think that was unconfirmed, but still, if that's true, there was some, character, like, backstories and stuff.
Were, like, heavily changed, and, like...
Yeah, and so...
It's just not the same.
The one thing that it does have going for it is Netflix put a massive budget towards it. Actually, I recently read an article saying that the live-action Avatar show by Netflix set the world record for the largest lighting studio for anything ever. TV show, movie, anything.
What the fuck?
Is the largest, like, LED setup studio for anything ever. So, at least they're putting money effort into it. Okay? Yeah. But, so we'll see.
I mean, the casting doesn't look that bad in hindsight.
You're never going to be satisfied with everybody. You're just not, right? And so,
well, I mean, considering the fact of, again, when you consider live action and what we got with the last live action outing... Like you said, it couldn't get much worse, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a direct improvement just because different heads are at the helm of this one. That was kind of how I felt, just on an offshoot little deviation from the conversation.
It looks like these people have more acting history, though. A lot of the cast here was pretty much like straight at fresh.
Because the girl who was Katara ended up... She was in the 4th Transformers movie, and that was like, barely her second outing or something as an actress. But that's how I felt about the Death Note thing, too, that there was like there's going to be a new show for that live action, and I'm just like, why bother?
I don't really pay that much attention to the live action show because...
At this point, it's like...
It's going to be what it's going to be. I'm going to try... I'm still going to... Probably not the whole show, but I'll probably at least watch the first few episodes.
Yeah, I do want to watch the first few episodes.
Just so I can get a reading on how Netflix did compared to the movie, right? And so... My current gauge, because it sounds like a lot of the filler stuff, like the Great Divide, they're gonna rip out. So it sounds like the actual like season will be about the same amount of runtime, but we'll have some of the fillery stuff cut out, more of the silliness cut out, and that extra time will be spent giving a little bit extra flesh out character development to some of the other characters and side characters, so you can get some additional story there. What that will entail, I don't know.
Will the cabbage guy get his own episode?
If I had to guess, my current guess of the show is it's not going to be good or bad. It's going to be a thing, right? It's going to seem bad because you're comparing it to Avatar, but if you remove that from the equation, it would just be a show. It's kind of how my opinion of it. Obviously, I have no way to base that. I'm just guessing.
Because if that's what ends up happening, then that's where I step in and go like, then why make an Avatar?
Exactly.
Why would
correct.
you?
I don't think they should be doing it.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's why
unless we get really lucky and it turns out to be almost, because it's not going to be as good. But if it
turns out to be good in its own right,
good in its own right, at least comparable.
Yeah.
Right.
Where you can make like genuine and like really positive like comparisons, like, oh hey, well the show did it this way. It's cool that they went this route, like those kinds of things. Instead of, dude, the show did so much better.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
But yeah, Avatar Studios is really what
that's where it's gonna be at.
That's what I'm really excited for. Yeah, all of that, because the movies, and it sounds like it's gonna begin a new show on top of that and stuff. So it's gonna be. I'm excited.
This whole fucking Avatar cinematic universe going on here. But that was the cool thing too, like how we've been talking about. This is more of just a reiteration now than anything. Like how the world, the universe, and everything of Avatar is so thought out and so built up. It could be the smaller things that they've established throughout the shows proper, both Avatar and Korra, and just those in-betweens, because Korra got its own share of in-between stories and after the finale and stuff as well. So why not do a movie about a past Avatar that we've never even heard of before, or one that we have but we don't have too much backstory on?
I don't think you can go too much more into the future, because it'll be too modern, right?
Yeah.
Korra is about as far as I think you can go before it's like, okay, this is just real world with powers.
Yeah, because I feel, and then that'll be like any other sci-fi thing that's come out ever. But I think, because yeah, I've had that thought, like, what would an Avatar show or anything in like, even like a fucking fan short film or something, in like modern times look like? I don't know.
Imagine
it'd be weird.
In rockets, and they're like dropping asteroids on people with earthbenders.
Could you imagine if they just like brought a whole fucking planet, like Thanos in like Infinity War, just take a moon or take some kind of shit and go, and just yank it like fucking like Bruce Almighty style, and it just like
they're bending stars with firebenders. like we don't need a Death Star.
Well, that's gas too. Like
star death rays shit.
What?
Yeah, because it's not even fire.
Yeah.
Oh, but they already said the sun gives them power, so
that's true. But you can surmise probably that the core movie might be about what happens after, the series finale. Zuko, what would you think? What could the Zuko movie? Where could that take place?
I'm anticipating that it's just going to cover some of the comics, if I had to guess.
So a comic adaptation, probably.
I don't know.
I mean, this is just pure speculation.
So yeah. So just to give you a base rundown, right, with the comics, there's a couple things they addressed, again without spoilers. Zuko's mom, potential topic. Another topic. Well, a couple of the books, they cover basically essentially what as we know in the show, they sometimes mention the Earth Kingdom colonies that were in the fire, that were brought into the Fire Nation, right? Uh-huh. And the war was 100 years long, so some of these colonies have been part of the Fire Nation for a really long time. So one of the first problems that Zuko has to face as a Fire Lord is there's these communities that are kind of like, they're Earth Kingdom, but they're also Fire Nation. Uh-huh. And so they're at this point where, all right, we need to separate Earth Kingdom, Fire Nation. They're originally trying to kind of separate everything, but there's people that are so used to there are communities, small communities of people that they learned how to
adapt to those ways.
They're firebenders and earthbenders, and they get along, and they're like, fuck you, this is our community, go away, right? And they're trying to split up, so...
It's segregation, basically.
Yeah, and so they're trying to resegregate everyone. Mm-hmm. All right, and so they're...
It's fucking interesting.
Right, because in Korra, by that, of course, and you see, by Korra, that's all kind of come to fruition, right? Republic City, of course, there's still the kingdoms, right? Or primarily, they're right, but people are starting to mesh together, right? Mm-hmm. Like I said, Bolin and Mako are brothers, and they're an Earthbender and a Firebender, right? And so you see that. So one of the comics is covering the they cover the very early stages of that, where it's like,
that's cool.
Right, how the fuck do we make this work? It's more political.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's interesting because it's something that is only touched on every so often throughout the show, maybe, but the seeds have been planted for those kinds of stories to be able to be told.
Yeah.
So why not dive into that? It's just part of the world building.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, because they did such a good job. They can.
And it's for a slightly different audience who knows.
There's so many things that they can tackle now.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
For different audiences too. A lot of the people who grew up with Avatar, The Last Airbender, when it was airing on Nick, are like in their fucking 20s or 30s now.
The other thing they did with the original Avatar, which was a genius move, is like all the bending they based on real martial arts. So that is one thing that they have going for them for the live action show. Because if you have a lot of cartoons, it's usually just like random punches and stuff, and so when you translate that kind of stuff to live action, it looks weird.
Yeah.
But because they based it on realism, the architecture is often based on real ancient architecture. It's going to translate a little bit better to live television, right? If
they play their cards right and go that route.
My opinion is there is although small, I think, and I don't know how to do it properly, but I do believe that if you have the right person do it the right way, you can do an Avatar live action show correctly. Mm-hmm. It's just hard to iron it in. But there is a possibility of doing it right. You just have to find the right way to do it. Mm-hmm. Will that ever happen? Probably fucking not. But I think it could happen.
Yeah.
Because the creators were smart and based it on realism to begin with.
Yeah. As far as the Avatar movie, where they're going to be aged up, it's obviously taking place before Korra, but after.
Some people don't like. I don't really have a huge problem with that. If it's just an age buff.
Well, because what Korra touched on is that a lot of them, before they going their separate ways, now that they're adults, they're young adults, they have to deal with adult situations. Look at how Toph built the fucking police force, or whatever was it called.
I thought you were talking about the Netflix show, because they're they're thinking of aging up everyone up by
are they?
By about 2 years, I think.
I don't know about that, but
I don't have
for this movie.
Yeah.
Them being older, they're probably at least all 10 years older or something.
Oh, yeah.
Or a little bit older than
maybe
that.
even more, like 20.
15, 20 years older. So, like, and we've seen it. We don't get everyone's, well, we get most of their story, I suppose. Well, we know Zuko, because Zuko and Toph and Katara are still in Korra, and they're all very old, because that takes place, 70 years or so after Avatar? That's what I heard, anyway. I think it is 70, right? It's at least decades after.
I think it's 70, because I think I don't know if this was actually ever covered. I've heard this theory, though. Maybe it's if you can point to me where this is actually confirmed. If it is confirmed, that would be awesome. But I think they're saying that the reason a lot of Aang's friends are still alive is because Aang's time in the iceberg shortened his lifespan. Right. Because he spent so much time in the Avatar state, frozen in an iceberg, that he died young compared to most other avatars. Essentially, that's why. Not only did Toph and Katara live past, and Zuko live past Aang, but they're still around when Korra's basically almost an adult.
Yeah.
Right. So Aang died 20 years almost before you see.
And usually
Katara, right? And she's old then. And that's kind of what I mean. Is
I was say, and that's why he's not
he died
old.
around 60 or 70.
But Aang's not. Isn't it where how you see the previous Avatar? That is it roughly how old they were when they died? Because we don't see old Aang. He's always maybe 30, 40. He's in his 40s. He even says his age at some point.
I don't know. Roku looks old, but look at Kyoshi. Whenever she shows up, she looks like she's 30. Avatar Kuruk, you only see him for a moment, the waterbender. Yang Chen didn't look ancient.
That's true. No, but they all dealt with various adults. Some of them were dealing with adult situations, mainly Toph. Toph got a lot of fucking story, especially with her family and everything in Korra, especially near the end there.
Yes.
Whatever happened to Sokka? Did he die? Is he missing? I forget what happened to him.
He's dead. He died. That's why you never see him in Korra.
Just not flashback.
One of the very first, in the flashback, but that's it. Because that's one of the first things he
said.
Because Katara clearly said, in the very first scene, Katara herself says, Sokka and a lot of my friends are gone. Right. Implying that Sokka is dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh. That sucks. Anyway, maybe they'll explain that.
Yeah. Aang's dead, duh, because
no
Korra wouldn't be there.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I wonder if it's gonna be. I wonder if the movie's gonna be them starting, trying to figure out how to start Republic City, how they're gonna.
One of the comics is about that.
Is it?
Very beginnings of it.
Maybe they'll adapt it. It seems it just logically seems because we know what happens after the show, because then Korra takes place, but albeit being years after. So what happened in that in between? And I think the movie's going to explain that. Even if the comics do, they'll probably take from the comics. Maybe they'll directly adapt some of the comics.
The comics just barely touch the beginnings. Like the foothold was just barely placed, essentially, right?
Okay.
So, and in the comics, those only take place over a pretty short amount of time, a period as well, like a couple years. So. They're not adults like they're going to be in the show. So in this show, that plan is probably underway because you saw in the flashbacks, Republic City's already a thing, and Aang is walking around it.
Yeah.
Right. So.
But like I said too, he was already in his 40s or so by the time they were already almost middle aged by the time that happened. And we don't really know the timeline because even the image they gave, I don't know if that's even if that's an image from the film or if that was something that they showed off from Korra, because they look like the way they do in Korra in that screenshot.
Yeah,
so
I don't know.
I don't know if it's going to be
we'll see.
They're just a few decades older, or if it's at the time of those flashbacks. That's what it could be, probably. All in all, though, Avatar's good.
Is good. So
there's so much to.
We skipped episodes. I'm sure we covered some things more in depth than others, so you can always feel free to comment down. And if there's anything that you didn't agree with our opinion or had something else maybe we skipped over that had some heavy weight in it, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah.
Because I love Avatar and I could talk about it more and more.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah, we covered quite a lot.
The major bits. All of our Avatar talk through different playthroughs and games and whatnot.
Which I'm sure is going to continue to have
culminated to this. Yeah, probably. But tune in next time and we'll probably, we'll see if eventually we get to Korra at some point.
Yes.
It's not an immediate plan, but at some point we'll probably do it.
And probably have to clear up a little bit more, because I definitely have more knowledge of Avatar Last Airbender.
Korra being one of the last things I binged recently, and I say recently very loosely because that was probably maybe 2 or so years ago. There's a lot more that stuck with me. There are a lot more characters I remember, and the situations, and there's just a lot more with the development of this show, and how we touched a little bit about it here and there in this one, but boy, that show was dicked around a lot. There was
developmental issues with that show.
Executive meddling.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
But
overall, I think they did a good job with what they had to work with.
It's solid. The show is still a lot of people say, and I do kind of agree. It's not as good. It doesn't really surpass the standard Last Airbender put on shows of this kind.
It has its moments that are really good,
of course,
but it's not as consistent throughout the whole show.
It's still strong, just not as strong, basically.
Yeah.
So.
And so if you go in expecting it to be as good as Avatar, that's I think the people that end up being the most disappointed. Right?
Yeah.
Just go in knowing, if you haven't seen it, I'm sure if you've seen it, you probably have already. But if you haven't, if you've only seen Last Airbender and you've been thinking about Korra, go in just understanding that there was some developmental issues. There's going to be a little bit of a different energy to it.
The pacing's a little weird.
The pacing's a little weird sometimes. Just take it as a different show. I think obviously you're going to reference Avatar and you can't completely separate it. That would be impossible to do. But try to keep it as clear-minded as possible entering it, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah.
But,
and we'll get to that whenever we get to that. So
tune in next time.
Yay! It is fucking hot. I am done.
Yep.
Oh,
fuck summer.
Fuck summer. What?